home decided to watch some TV, listening to the news like Gordon Mosley. Listening to the things that he say he tracking tonight, paying close attention to make sure I hear it right. But when I hear the things that he mentioned on the news, I had to declare them kind of thing got me confused. I hear some things where the ERC noticing, and it convinced people that people ain't learning nothing. We hear so many times about them big name calling, and they say ERC pretend that they didn't learn nothing. But once you're black and you just decide to say a word or two, bet your life on that they say ERC coming for you. Listen to the things you just hear on social media. Only one set of people allowed to talk in One Guyana. I still say nothing, black people in learning. But this is my concern. I hope one day black people will learn. Something about this ERC that I would like to know. If any of its members happens to be black people, and if that is the case, I want them to answer this call. Tell me how come none of them ain't got no voice at all. You're showing signs of weakness and you're afraid to be fair, and we see the same thing keep happening year after year. And the day will come when all this nonsense will stop. That will be the day when black people decide to wake up. Not so long ago, something terrible happened. This young Indian man want to kill out all black people by poison. But if his shoes was on the other foot, would have been a big threat. But up to this day, this ERC can do nothing as yet. How come it's only black people committing cybercrime? When pretty on social media fussing people all the time, I still say black people in learning. But one day will come when the entire table will turn. Plenty of these issues we see they fail to condemn, because these people think that the law is only for them. And anybody else who decide to file a complaint, they go call you a racist and don't want to hear nothing. Plenty complaint from time to time has been brought to their attention, but because of this one-sided cybercrime is why they don't show any concern. There's only one set of people that they really care about, and black people must take the abuse and shut them out. Kidaki Amsterdam went to court just recently for an issue that was highlighted by the same ERC. And with breakneck speed, the police decide to jump on his case. Without a search warrant, they went and search up the man's place. Let us all agree that black people under attack. Different laws for you and me just because we black. I still still singing. Black people in London. To all my black friends, we must put a stop to all this nonsense. Many the cybercrime laws to keep people silent, just to make sure nobody criticize this government. And while that is a very clear case of dictatorship, it is no surprise that the ERC ignoring it. Why only the chosen few is allowed to have things their way, when people like me and you must have nothing to say? And when ministers in the government start to launch their attack, you never hear this ERC come out and talk about that. They send a policeman all the way to New York. This fella went up there to serve a cold summer man with all bark. Under they say, this government decide to fabricate a case, but like they forget the warning they get from Latisha James. The vice president described that he use as a low life. Because of this kind of abuse, he don't have a wife. I still singing. Black people in learning. Just the other day, I hope your man see help is on the way.
All right, so today we are here at Club Twilight up in Buxton, and we are here to talk about all that's going on up here. Trust me, if you are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in Tongue, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The Cutters, mwah. Listen, I'll be having some just now again. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned. The decor is on point. The music's on point. Everything's on point. It's just me. I need some work. But everything else that belongs to this club here is on point. So if you want to find a nice little place where you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You can rent a hall, honey. You can rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Dam. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. But it's on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out. You know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. This is Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely needed too. Thank you. All right, so you might be wondering where we are. Still in Buxton at Club Twilight. That's where we are. So Club Twilight also has like an Airbnb as well. So you could come, drink, drunk, and come in the back here and lie down. Look at that. Look at that. Perfection. And the people come in the room and so on. The bed sheet matching the blind, matching the carpet, matching the this, matching the that. We know about we things in Buxton. Don't play with we. So definitely, if you want to come and, you know, you may be having a wedding or whatever, and you just want to overnight and just have a good time because you're going to be drunk, we got too much road accidents. So you definitely want to come drink, have a good time. They have several rooms that you can rent. You have your toilet, you have your bath, you have your sink, you have your dining area, you have the bed. This is nice. I like it. Anyways, to my friends and my family, if you're looking for me, I'll be overnighting. As for those persons who are traveling in from overseas, you want a nice, cozy place out of town, then Club Twilight, call them up, look them up on social media. They have their own Facebook page, and ensure that you come up the side and have a good time. Have a good time. Have a good time. I'm sorry. That's it.
Don't be a victim. Beat the heat with EC Crystals. Party ice in large and small quantities. Call 682-7981 or visit us at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. EC Crystals, pure party ice.
Are you looking for tents to rent? Well, look no further. At EC Party Rentals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North, we have tents in all sizes and colors. All sizes of tents we have. Small tents, big tents, medium tents, extra large tents. Call us on 622-5933. We have what you need. EC Party Rentals. Big on tents. Planning a party? Worry no more. We have all the supplies you need. At EC Party Rentals, we have folding chairs, folding tables, square tables, round tables, long tables, short tables, big tables. We have chairs, red chairs, gold chairs, white chairs, crystal chairs, chairs of all type, throne chairs. What you want, we have. Food warmers, coolers, ice, beverages. At EC Party Rentals, we have what you need to have a good time. You plan the party, we do the work. Call us 622-5933. EC Party Rentals. Let's keep your party going.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop, located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat Section. Call us on 609-7168. 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more.
Hey, Guyana, time to rise up, time to move up. Hey, me and you in the place. Hey, we put people first. Oh, hey. From Essequibo straight to Berbice, Guyana people want justice and peace. From quarantine water to Demerara Shore, we tie up promises, we want more. Hey, no more lies, no more disguise. It's time for we dreams to realize. We coming strong with people power. APNU hour, this is we hour. APNU, say people first. We not gonna stop till the blessings burst. APNU, we putting people first. Time to rise up, break the curse. Future bright like a brand new day. We giant lead in a real big way. APNU, say people first. From the top to the bottom, learn unity blazing, vision clear. Guyanese strong, no space for fear. We got the rhythm, we got the fire, lifting every village higher and higher. No more fights, no more delay. We come to build Guyana today. From Lettenbush to Bartica Base, every face got a place in this race. We done with the brokenness, done with the slack. We're taking the country forward, no turning back. Who you voting? Why we voting? Tell the nation. Let we go and claim the prize. APNU, we putting people first. Time to rise up, break the curse. Future bright like a brand new day. We dine leading a real big way. APNU, say people first. From the top to the bottom, earth unity blazing, vision clear. Guyanese strong, no space for fear. Every youth, every elder stand tall. This Guyana belong to us all. From the market woman to the king cutter hand, we building up this blessed land. APNU got the plan, got the drive. Putting people first, keeping up alive. So wind up, jump up, move with pride. We waving them flag nationwide. Say, are you ready? Are you ready? Say, we go vote. Say, APNU. People first. APNU, we putting people first. Time to rise up, break the curse. Future bright like a brand new day. We giant lead in a real big way. APNU, say people first. From the top to the bottom up. Unity blazing, vision clear. Guyana strong, no space for fear. We outside in sun and rain. We putting people first again. APNU, we lead the line. Time for Guyana to rise and shine.
I can't take it no more. I can't take it no more. Can't take it no more. Imagine 18 hours of black.
You put an angel over me. Be strong. With a poor meditation. One day, things must get better. I know the words, or at least I think I know some of the words. I can't sing them. I never promote myself as a singer. So all of y'all who ready for tell me, Mr. Amsterdam, stay with the talk show and the programming and so on, and don't worry with the sing thing. I get a memo already. I know I can't sing, so what y'all come running up to me for? Yeah? I'll come running up to the eye for. I can't sing. And I never sing a thing in my life. I could recite. Yeah, morning and your morning. Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. TikTokers, welcome on board. How y'all do? How y'all been? How was y'all long time away from me? How was y'all last night? Y'all yesterday? What were you able to achieve yesterday? Did you achieve those goals you set? Smart goals. I always encourage you to set small goals. Take baby steps. Build brick by brick by brick. And when you build brick by brick by brick, people look at you and they say, like, this one punish him for do this thing. Like, he ain't making no strength. And then by the time you catch yourself, you got a mansion. Is where you get it from? By the time you catch yourself, you're there at the top of the ladder. Is how we reach there. By the time you catch yourself, you are a success story, despite the fact that they had written you down for failure. And they ask, how we make that happen? It came through perseverance. Not a village. The mentality. The attitude. Winning has to be an attitude. It's not like I come and feel like do it today and don't feel like do it tomorrow. It's sticking to it and banging away, plugging away at it every single day. I know I can, like the angel, little engine. I know I can. And you're gonna get it done. Let us not get up and make a strong show of launching our campaign and then we go back into what appears to be lethargy. No. We end up on though. We got this thing covered. We outside the GCOM already. We got a first, so let me hear what I'm going to say about the PPP. Because GCOM is PPP and they could do as they like. Just as the streets in the country and the assets and so on belongs to them, GCOM belongs to the PPP. But this is how we were talking about this morning. We have enough things to talk about this morning. I see that say Adriana's case is not closed. You know what I say? Pressure does bust pipe. And so as long as Guyanese keep up the pressure, they're going to come to you and they're going to tell you all kinds of things. I like to call them things fair promise, man. Right? They're going to come to tell you and they're going to come to you and tell you all kinds of things. Adriana case isn't closed yet. We're still investigating it. It's still open. Yes, that's a good thing. Because you know why? The PPP will launch its election campaign Friday, Sunday, I think. And then no guy is going to be asking them, what about Adriana? What about Adriana? And so let me tell them up front, the case ain't closed yet. We're still investigating it. Right? We're still investigating it. Yard binder. The case closed until after elections. Or up until the election as far as the PPP is concerned. What are you saying? All of these promises that the PPP is making to Guyanese must be seen in the light of a three-card trick. Because that is what it is, a three-card trick. We're going to refund your CXC fees after the elections. The Guyana case remains open. We're going to get your salary increases just before elections. Pay attention to these promises and recognize what they are. They are election buying gimmicks. What else was the election vote buying gimmick? And you know, I'm not flashing my Christian community here, but I'm pointing out where the men of God, and perhaps as I want to say the women of God, I think that is spirit of discernment. Like not for y'all masquerading. Like not for y'all masquerading. And so I'm appealing to my Christian brothers and sisters. Don't let the wolves who are supposed to be your shepherds lead you astray. Do not allow the wolves who are supposed to be your shepherds lead you astray. Because your shepherds are supposed to keep you safe. Your shepherds are supposed to guide you to greener pastures. Not guide themselves to greener pastures. Shepherds need grass and grazing. But your shepherds, Mr. Coast, I'm going to have to accept the next one. Right. Your shepherds in the Christian community, in the Christian churches, for the greater part, from what I see, and I am entitled to my opinion, are not concerned about their flock and guiding them to greener pastures. They seem to be happy living in a society where our young people are exposed to lawlessness on a daily, exposed to murder on a daily, exposed to criminality on a daily, exposed to intolerance on a daily, exposed to government corruption and government wickedness and vindictiveness and child abduction and rape and murder on a daily. It seems as though the majority, or a whole lot, let me don't say the majority, I didn't do the scientific research, a whole lot of those who are supposed to be shepherds of the Christian flock are satisfied with that. Righteousness exalts a nation, this is what they say. And if the shepherds of the flock is prepared to rub shoulder and love up this PPP government, then they seem to be calling this righteousness. Or is it that they are in bed with the forces of darkness? What am I talking about? Kiraki, why are you attacking the Christian community? No, me not attacking the Christian community. I tell you already, I am an equal opportunity beater, and I just tell it as I see it. The One Guyana worship experience, that was advertising for several weeks or months now. And from the time I hear the One Guyana worship experience is free, and you got international artists and so on, and you only can get your tickets through your churches free of charge. And at some other specific locations, free of charge.
I sat in my mind and said, I'd like to tell you, I let us sit down and watch things unfold, and then I just stop. I said, this is a PPP organized event to corral black people. And y'all understand me? To corral black people and tell you how it's to corral black people. And when I talk, I like to remind you, I talk from the position of a social scientist. When the social scientist talks, it's not in absolute, but it's in majority. Right? And so when I say corral black people, because if you check in the Christian churches, you will find the majority of them are black people. The majority Christian, anywhere around the world perhaps, but I'm dealing with Guyana, no Guyana. Afro-Guyanese, or black people as we call them loosely. You will get a sprinkling of Indo-Guyanese, you'll get a sprinkling of Amerindo, you'll get a sprinkling of Portuguese, and so on and so forth. But for the greater part, is black people there in them Christian churches. And so when the PPP organize a One Guyana worship experience to the Christian community, is black people that want to bring together in one place so they can get to whisper in their ears. I said to a particular politician the other day, I don't understand how to do politics, you know. Politics doesn't always have to be upfront and braggadocio and upfront and bold. Politics could be subtle. As subtle as me turning up at your event or wherever you are. Say, how you do? Hey, look, I just collect them buttons from the campaign headquarters. Take one. Hey, look, man, you got children. Give them children one, man. You want it to. Take this dozen. Hey, how you do, boy? Hey, I'm going to see you. You know, I got some jersey in the truck there in the car there. For the APN, you want one? You get jerseys yet? It is as subtle as that. Hey, I don't know, you were watching the campaign launch last night. But it is the biggest campaign launch any candidate to the APNU I ever see since I became of age to vote. And so, you see the buy? The man, they say power by the man will win the election. What I see out there is as simple as that. Then I go up close and personally, nobody feels argue politics. It is as simple as that. And so, my African brothers and sisters of the Christian community, y'all turn out in y'all numbers for a One Guyana worship experience. I'm going to say to you humbly that I think you're wrong. So don't come and tell me it's we money pay for the artists. Yes, it's we money pay for the artists. Don't come and tell me whatever the PPP, the plan for the, as questions we don't destroy the tree with prayers. And God don't destroy the tree works. Because somewhere in the book, I think they say, don't go in the counsel of the ungodly. You're telling me that the Creator didn't know that he could destroy it? You're telling me the Creator didn't know that prayers could destroy it? But he still caution you, say, hey, stay clear of the counsel of the ungodly. Stay clear of the counsel. Because your actions going to determine your salvation, you know. And I'm preaching it. I'm trying to remember some aspects of the Bible for the shepherds who are leading the flock in the wrong direction. And I'm going to prove to you why I know it wrong. There are one single occurrence that will convince me, or has convinced me, that I was right when I said you are. If you have a One Guyana experience, worship experience, worshiping has nothing to do with race, color, ethnicity, political affiliation. But Psycho Andrews, who was declared, or who has declared his candidacy for the coalition Sunday night, was previously listed as an artist, as a psalmist, as a songster, whatever his category, but as an artist to perform at the One Guyana worship experience, was removed from the list of performers the day after his candidacy was announced. And so you show me the oneness, shepherds of the flock. You all show me the oneness. And show me the One Guyana worship experience. And let me tell you something. I'm convinced that a lot of people in that crowd there, in attendance, are not supporters of the PPP. And the PPP knows that. And those people know that to their heart. But again, politics doesn't have to be broad. It could be very subtle. You think the PPP is concerned about, let me say, 400 persons being there and 399 don't like them? They're not even concerned about the one that like them. What they concern themselves with is being able to stand for photo opportunity among 400 predominantly Afro-Guyanese to say to the world, look how they support us. All of these support us because they are in our presence. And so when the rig come in and you challenge the rig, they say, but look at the numbers that we were able to bring out in support of us. Even the Christian community came out in support of us. And so when the shepherd doesn't know what his or her role is in leading, they're going to lead the flock astray. You think it's by chance they say there should be a separation of church and state? You think it's by chance they say churches should stay out of politics? Or something to the extent? Because within the church, there are many who will agree and disagree with the government. There are many who will agree and disagree with the opposition. And so if this church stays its neutral self, those people will make their individual decisions. But the church is in bed now with a group, a gang, a cartel of corrupt and criminal politicians. Not because the congregants necessarily want to be there, but because the shepherds are leading there, because the shepherds are concerned with their own self-aggrandizement. They're concerned with their own self-aggrandizement. They want duty-free concession from the government. They want contract from the government. They want to rub shoulders with the corrupt politicians in government. When I was a youth man growing up and the pastors behaved in a certain way, the congregation used to read them out. When members of the congregation behaved in a certain way, the congregation used to read them out. But we are all accepting people now. The pastor could do no wrong. The pastor must regard himself with some people concerned. And instead of recognizing the important role that they have to guide the flock to a place of righteousness, they're taking the opportunity to guide themselves and bring the flock along to a place of unrighteousness so that they can collect the filthy lucre. If this One Guyana worship experience is truly One Guyana worship experience, why a brother, as in Saiku, who doesn't support the government, as it may appear because he's on the opposition platform, was removed from it? Y'all talk to me. Tell me, why? And you didn't have to have this concert, this One Guyana worship experience, whatever you call it, to recognize that. The entire nation knows that that is what the PPP stands for. And so any pastor, any leader, any religious community, any leader, any shepherd of the flock come and tell me that he supports what the PPP stands for. I would see him for what he is. You know, let me tell you something, because a lot of people believe I just talk. But when I take a position, I'm prepared to defend it and I'm prepared to live by it. I was a member of the Anglican Church. I was a server. I was youth president. I was synod representative. I was even considered for going to learn theology. In fact, I was being considered to be sent to school and all of that. And you know where the church and I parted company? I was responsible for a particular event. And when I did my report, I identified where some skullduggery happened. And the priest at the time, I wouldn't call his name, he must know himself, said to me, Brother Kidaki, we can't tell the church this. You cannot tell the church this. But while I couldn't tell the church that I wasn't allowed to tell the church that, I was made to carry the burden of accusations because I was in charge. Or I was responsible for coordinating, etc. I said, what kind of business this is? The church is supposed to be teaching you righteousness and upstandingness and so on. And you telling me that I recognize the wrong that was committed. And I must not say to the church, this is the wrong that was committed. And I left the congregation. Many might not even know why I left the congregation when I left it. But I'm saying it now, I left the congregation. And after years of my mother singing and preaching in my ears, why Kidaki, why you little yourself come back to church, da 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 da. You ain't going to church because a man is God and thing. And you know I love my mother, no, I love my mother. And eventually I decided, all right, I'm going to put my mother's heart at ease. And I started to go back to the church in and out, you know, visiting and so on and so forth, to see if I really wanted to dwell among the congregants. Let me leave it as that. And then my mother, a woman, was giving her life, I want to say, or the last years of her life to dedicating herself to worshiping in the church and so on. And even out of the little bit that she used to get, she would pay tithes, and she would, if they got anything, they asked him for special contribution, she would give and so on and so forth. She would ensure that as a shut-in, the arrangements are made for the priest to come and give her communion and all of that. When my mother died, funeral arrangements were made, prices were set in terms of how much money the church got to get to do what they got to do and all of that. When we turned up at the church with the hearse and the procession with my mother's corpse, the doors of the church remained closed, because the priests and members of the vestry were at wrath with each other. Because the priests and members of the vestry were at wrath with each other, the door remained closed on my mother's funeral day for about 1.5 hours. And when eventually it was opened and there was time for, what do you call them, tributes, I went up there and I said, you know, I got part of the Bible say that salt is supposed to flavor the earth. And when it has lost its saltiness, it has no more value and should be thrown out to be trampled under the feet of the people. And I'm sure the priests understood what I was saying. And I'm sure the congregants understood what I was saying. Because as far as I'm concerned, all of them, they don't lose the damn purpose in the church. And if you lose your purpose in the church, you can't preach to me. And that was the last day I went to church, or that church, as a congregant. And I live my truth. So when you hear I say, when you hear me take what some people might consider extreme positions, I live them. Because if you can't set your house in order, as in the church, I ain't going personal, where you leading me to? Better say and rewards don't come from man, but from Yahweh. I agree. But you know what? The Lord uses many of our people as vessels. And if the vessels are corrupted, what do you think they're going to deliver to the people? But it's not a religious sermon this morning. It's politics we're talking about. But I'm saying to those so-called religious leaders, shepherds of the flock, rolling up in bed with the PPP, y'all becoming dirtier by the day. Y'all becoming tainted. Y'all have been muzzled by greed, by selfishness. I can't say by selfish ambition, because each of us have ambition. And we should have ambition. But we shouldn't realize our ambition at the expenses of those who we're supposed to be shepherding. We shouldn't be trading those who we're supposed to be shepherding for our personal upliftment. And that's what the church doing today. A lot of them in the church doing today. And if you all think it's stupidness attacking, y'all look at the Kaichu News headline. I almost forget to add it up there. Thousands gathered for One Guyana worship experience concert. Who do you see on stage? Prime Minister Mark Phillips and Bishop Wanegel at the One Guyana worship experience concert on stage. Or in the as somebody asked, how is it a One Guyana concert got VIP area? I see Big Smith and maybe Wanegel Jr. or whoever cussing out each other about VIP treatment and VIP answer. Where is the One Guyana? Even got this One Guyana worship experience, you got segregation. The bishop tell the audience or those in attendance, take out your phone, snap a photograph, put it on your profile and say One Guyana. Why he didn't say Christ is King? Why he didn't tell them to put God is good? Why he didn't tell them to say hallelujah? Righteousness exalted the nation. Why he didn't tell them all of that? He said put One Guyana. One Guyana he tell them to put. And there are people within the Christian community who come and try to convince me that Kidaki, you're wrong to the Christian community. You're wrong to the pastors. I was talking about the predominance of African Guyanese in the Christian community. Let me come down to the next photograph. If you look at the photograph with those Prime Minister Phillips and Bishop Regil, and so show me how many Indo-Guyanese, Amerindo, Portuguese, Chinese are in that photograph. Show me them. And I'll tell you quite frankly, in about a particular photograph, anytime you see Indo-Guyanese, they're part of the entourage of the government. Right? But we're talking about the predominance of African Guyanese in Christianity. Look at this photograph. Make up your test study. Make a photo study and tell me what you see. And look him still. It look like they got 2 of them, 3 of them. Non-African Guyanese. Yeah, you see that? Look at this one. This is a composite. Look at it. And you show me who dominated the photograph. And then tell me that you understand what I'm saying when I say politics ain't got to be brother. It could be subtle. Very subtle. And if these so-called shepherds didn't understand that, then they ain't got no purpose. They ain't got no right shepherd in nothing. They ain't got no right shepherd in nothing. Because what they've done is taken their flock into the den of thieves or the den of the wolves to be devoured. I ain't get to the message yet, you know. I didn't even know it was a message that the bishop and the rest of the government people them delivered. I know the message, you know. I didn't even pay attention to the message. Right? Well, hear me. The good book again tell me, throw seeds. Sow seeds. Dash them. Some gonna fall on rock, they ain't gonna germinate. Some gonna fall on, I would say, semi-fertile soil. They're gonna bust out, but they ain't gonna live. And some gonna fall on fertile soil, and they're gonna grow and they're gonna produce. And so the PPP and K, about the 399,900 that ain't like them. Not even the one that like them. They calculate already. We gonna sow we seed. We gonna sow we seed. With the hope that some must fall on fertile ground. Remember it was that in who say? The minds of young African Guyanese, young Afro Guyanese, young Black Guyanese is fertile ground. And if you want to find a lot of young African Guyanese, go into the churches. He didn't say, so I'm telling you, go into the churches and you're going to find them. But a pelt and a lash for my comrades now. But African Guyanese politicians, by virtue of the fact that most of them are Christians, they got so much respect for the Christian teachings and the Christian principles that they're going to stay far from the church. They're going to go and preach politics in the church. But the people ain't got no problem doing it. I rest my sermon for the morning. Amen to that. Let me talk about extrajudicial killing and the PPP, because it's a conversation that was started and a challenge of mine yesterday. I say, you provide for me the people who are murdered. Provide for me the people who are murdered during the crime spree of 2000, 2002, 2000, till whenever. I don't even remember the years, and I'll be very honest with you, I try not to even remember the years. It was 2000 too long. Right? Good. I went out this morning to the little memorial site there. To get some names. I don't know, y'all like quick to say. People make up this and people make up that. So I didn't write the names down. I took photographs. And so we do a little picture study this morning. These are some names. Clifton Wong, Darren Paul Ramsaroop, Dennis Richards, Alicia Foster, Leon Dundas, Cranston Gill, Brandis Roberts, Shanice Richardson, John Haywood, Tanisha Morgan, Daraji Sicharan, Sigobin Gorde, Shalim Bash, Shane Fredericks, Abdul Yassin, Aston Smart, Anthony Charles, Bornal Narain, Delon Nelson, Mark Crawford, Patrick Cumberbatch, Charles Hinkson, Richie Fernandez, sorry. Compton Spears, Dexter Chase, Rondell Rollins, Melissa Payne, Raphael Pigot, Cliff Chichester, Faisal Robert Ali, Lieutenant Colonel Dean Ryan, Orlando Andrews, Shazam Mohammed, Rupert Sicharan, Rewati Ram Singh, Troy St. John, Ron Osborne, Ashraf Ali Khan, Delon Woodruff, James Bennett, Owen Adams, David Charlie, Gregory McKinnon, Mark King, Marlon Wilson, Errol Emmanuel. That's a statement of names. They got more, you know. It's a whole list. It's over 400 of them. Brian King, Shaka Blake, Gavin Sobers, Wesley Hendricks, Ramdeo Prasad, Andy Atwell, Monica Rodriguez, Mohammed Bash, Carl Wickham, Ramfal Pardat, Mohan Lachman, Quinch McDonald, Andrew Douglas, Gavin Narayan, Delon Accra, Jonel Wilson, Lloyd Singh, Joel Duncan, Radwin Pecker. That list could go on and on. I don't think I will continue calling it. If I wanted, I could send it to you. It did not separate sinner from saint. It did not separate sinner from saint. So y'all don't come and tell me they got sinners there, they got enough sinners there, they got enough saints there too. It didn't separate sinners from saint. All it identified is more than 400 Guyanese, majority Afro-Guyanese, murdered extrajudicially. Actually, murder is extrajudicial anyhow. Under the PPP government. Somebody's telling me it's 2002 to 2009, something like that. Right? It's 7 years we're talking about. People being massacred and murdered and unalived and so on for 7 years under government. And you will stand and look me in the eyes and say to me the government wasn't complicit? You will stand and say to me that the government was not part of the intellectual authoring of that? And so when our idiot friend comes and asks me about this and that, and if Indian people weren't killed and so on, I want my idiot friend to ask his friends in the government if the intellectual authors weren't Indians. And if the intellectual authors were Indians or Indo-Guyanese, what does it say about their care and concern and love for their own people? It says that the PPP has always been an organization that even if it got for more its own, or it got for more than a whole lot of Indo-Guyanese to maintain Indo-Guyanese support and loyalty, it gonna do it. Case in point, Saturday or so, I mean, people can carry me back till to the 60s. I want to go to the 60s because a lot of young people tell me when they're born, they only know PPP and government. So let me stick in PPP government time to know, especially because I'm addressing young people in part. Me want to go till to the 60s for know who they take for start race riot. I come in here in the 2000s. They killed Saturday or so, one of their own minister. Calamidine, the man that you own Amazon, what a place name just on that Fifth Street now. I call the name just is a Mohammed MFK. Mohammed F. Khan, I think, MFK trader. The PPP is known for the brutality. And that is why Indo-Guyanese in Indo-Guyanese enclaves, in communities like, I can tell you all the story just now, communities like Annandale, Enterprise, Lusignan, and more. Predominantly Indo-Guyanese community, despite the fact that there are people within those communities who, number one, hate what the PPP is doing, number two, will support the coalition, they dare not say, because next day they might turn up dead. If they don't turn up dead, they live in torment. So the idiot who asked me about the crime spree that season there, let him ask the PPP, who were the intellectual authors? I say again, there was no jailbreak on the 23rd of February 2000, whenever. Was a jail release. It wasn't robbery that resulted in Sash Khan's death. Saturday Sash death. It was political assassination, orchestrated and ordered by the PPP. Using who? The same quote-unquote jailbreak gang. But naturally, y'all go there, unalive him, pick up all that you want to pick up, make it look like a robbery, and kill him to the dog, so nobody could contest that. I remember the Muslim cleric. I remember the Muslim cleric. He was Indian too. What am I doing go there? Who was Shafiq? That's the name that they call him. I can't remember his name right now. The informer man. Them two banner from those Charleston here. The one that used to work with Gadraj as the informer. When they go and kill his body, thinking is he. And then he eventually dead. They say at the hands of a PPP woman Bacchus. Thank you again, Kerry Perry. I know you all know these things. I just don't want, I don't got me to remember name. Because you all know these things. I'm just reminding you of these things. I'm not telling you anything new. I'm putting it into context for the young people, especially because they seem not to know. He was Indian, right? He was Indian. One of Gajraj was Indian. But his killers were Afro-Guyanese. So when you look at the crime, the face of the crime is Afro-Guyanese. Oh God, the black man kill out them police. Who issued the order? Who was the intellectual author? Who said that that man has become a threat to our operation? Going out the light. Huh? Was Corbin? Wasn't Corbin? Was Desmond? Wasn't Desmond? Was Schwarzbaum? Definitely not. Was Ronald Garage? An Indian supremacist too, serving the PPP. Okay. So when my Indian friend, my idiot friend, asked me about them Indo-Guyanese that get murdered as a result of this quote-unquote jailbreak, you must ask those in the PPP, the intellectual authors, why they allowed Indo-Guyanese to be murdered. Not only 2000 to now, but even previously. Why do they continue to do this thing? And I'm asking Indo-Guyanese, why y'all isn't opening? And why y'all ain't being honest about the fact that even to y'all, the PPP is a danger? The lines are opened. 6225933 is the number to call. I'm your host, Kiraki Amsterdam. I'm arrogant. I'm brutal with facts. Because facts don't need help. Facts are facts, and that is what I present to you every day I come in. I ain't a curry flavor type. I love a curry, but I ain't gonna curry flavor no bits and pieces of information to make sometimes I myself look good. An informed voter is a good voter. Yeah, like Don David said, they're born about your business. The Azizes are Indo-Guyanese. What do you think? Is black man they going to burn down the butcher shop because they dare to stand against the PPP? No. Most people like themselves. Our idiot friends is calling again. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. Please allow me to respond to you this morning. So intellectual authors for those crimes that was committed on Indian people during the crime spree, if you allow me to call their names, would you allow me to call people names? Hello? Mr. Amsterdam, I don't want to...
If you have the evidence, presented, then you could call the names. Because when you call the names without the evidence, I answer everything.
Yeah. So you calling people names, right? You can't. I'm ready to respond to you.
I calling people names. I am calling people names because it has been established by the so-called Commission of Inquiry.
Okay, I'm not going to call people names, but can you remember the police commissioner that was undermining the government of the day? He turned out to be a minister in your government. Can you remember the guy who headed the army? See the 16 AK-47 missing from the army. He ended up being an advisor to your president. Remember your attorney general? Remember the guy who got the Ben Gunn show? There's so much people who was trying to undermine the government then, but and that's for that. And with the One Guyana concert, It hit you hard, Mr. Amsterdam. You know why? Because it turned out I was there. And I just want to tell you, people are not buying into the racism thing that you preach every morning and apartheid. People eyes are open, but they're waking up. They see the light. That is why they don't show up to these events. Thank you for taking my call, Mr. Amsterdam.
Thank you for your call. Desiderata said, even the dull and the ignorant, they too have their story. And who am I not allow even the dull and the ignorant to give their story? Why you are telling me don't allow the man? You really and truly don't have confidence in me? Huh? Man, why you gotta come so quick? You never allow me to respond to our idiot friend. What's your problem? Call it on. Go ahead.
Morning, Mr. Kadaki. I give a couple seconds here now so that idiot that just called you, that I could respond to that idiot, that jackass that just called you. There are two names that I love calling on this program for when I find these people in black skin, these coconuts, these rose bread fruits. Two names I love calling: Harriet Tubman, Mother Harriet Tubman, and Sister Winnie, Mama Winnie. If they were alive and that jackass was around them, he would have been, you know where, everybody know where, because he took care of coconuts, of rose bread fruits like them, black outside, but different inside. Different inside. A certain radio announcer said that he mentored that jackass. And he wanted to know, where did he go wrong? He didn't go wrong nowhere. He was always a coconut. He was always a rose bread fruit. People like them are not supposed to be existing around black people, around African people. People like them. And brother, if I come upon you, I gonna let you know to your face, you are a rose bread fruit. You are not more than a freaking coconut. So do what you want to do. You will never ever see progress under those people for yourself. You are nothing more than a sellout, Ali BT. That's all I have to say this morning.
Please hold your calls. Please hold your calls. If you call me, I'm going to block you. The lines are closed. You see what I'm talking about? I don't take instruction, you know. I like do your own thing. I ain't taking no calls. Hold the calls. Or idiot friend asked me a question or questions and I would like to respond. But let me first say to my good friend here, Fidel. She's asking, why do you continue to entertain him, to spread his propaganda? Because I want to address his propaganda. You see, there's a thing, a lot of us tell ourselves, shutting them down and shutting them out is good. But when you see a snake and you allow the snake to get away, just because you don't allow it to bite you, you allow it to get away, it's going to go bite somebody else. And if we don't bring clarity and understanding to this idiocy that this idiot is spewing, then he might be able to influence somebody with his idiocy who doesn't know better. Right? Let me start. He said that I had a commissioner of police that was undermining the PPP government and eventually became a minister of the APNU government. Do get the back. And I am going to sit here, even if I were that commissioner of police, and I would say with pride, I was doing my work. Because the government wasn't allowing me to do my work, I had to find ways and means of getting my work done. Even if it's to circumvent their instructions. It's not undermining them, it's circumventing their instructions to get my work done. Because at the end of the day, guess what? It's the same commissioner of police put Roger Khan on the run, and he went to Suriname, and then Suriname, Teki, And they sent it to Trinidad so that the US could collect his backside. That commissioner of police was doing his freaking work. Unlike this jackass that we got here. And several of the jackasses like the one that end up under the back of vehicle and dead. So let me repeat it for you. That commissioner of police that this idiot is referring to wasn't undermining the PPP. He was standing on the side of law and order. He was doing his work. He was doing his work. And I want to say this further. That if there were loopholes that that commissioner of police was using, it's because the PPP created them and allowed them to exist. I will tell you this. When that commissioner of police was crime chief, Shaka Blair was murdered in Buxton. His name is on that same list I just shared with you. Shaka Blair was murdered in his bed by the target special squad. And he's talking about who became an advisor. One of the murderers on the target special squad of the Black Force Police is currently advisor to Boko Ben. Being a card in him, you go do your research. I think he lose a leg, no? He's a 1 foot advisor to Boko Ben. He didn't run and go away to Canada when the kitchen get hot. But once the PPP was back in office, his comfort zone, come on, buddy, come home, come home. We welcome you, we killer. We're going to reward you for all them young black lives that you took in this country. And so we got one of the murderers from the target special squad advising Robeson Ben even today. And when they murdered Shaka Blair, that same commissioner of police that this idiot alluded to was crime chief. And they did not allow him to do his work. If I'm not mistaken, the commissioner of police at that time was a man named McDonald. Maybe one of the lamest and weakest. I could ask Paul so late in the day. Paul couldn't able to get all descriptions of them. But I think the commissioner there was McDonald. And they were waxing lyrical about investigating, and no stones will be left unturned and so on to investigate the Shaka Blair extrajudicial killing. Because Buxton was riled up and they wanted to quiet Buxton. So they had to make promises. And I tell you already that you know me because you go in the office and upset you and you trying to put me out. On the same Shaka Blair issue. Them time they're young and more arrogant if you all think arrogant now. What is not arrogance? Speaking truth, the power, calling it the way I see it. And so Shaka Blair get murdered and they tell you all kind of things to appease the situation. And that same commissioner of police that this idiot alluding to was crime chief and wasn't allowed to do his job. In fact, they give him basket for fetch water because they sent him to Buxton to meet with those of us concerned Buxtonians who were pressing for justice for Shaka Blair. And they had a place in Buxton like that named Woodell's Delight or the Scotch Shop. And that is where the meeting went. Julia Johnson represented Channel 9 media outfit. She was there. And while the cameras were live, the crime chief at that time was waxing lyrical about how much investigation they're doing. And the file with the DPP and the file and this and that and the other. And a man to his conscience, when the cameras came off, he came to me and he shook my hand and he said, "Hey, young man, big up yourself." Not his words, my words. Big up yourself. You're doing a really good job for your village. Let me be straight with you. You see the file I'm talking about? I never see it. You see the file I'm talking about? I never see it. And I'm saying that he had to come and wax lyrical because he had his political and other instructions to come and wax lyrical. And so, those are like so. If you could use me for roast the goose, then I want to roast the gander, I'm going to take the opportunity and roast the gander. Because you create the conditions under which I could roast the goose. And if the goose could get roast, the gander could get roast. He was returning the favor. He didn't undermine the government. The army chief, again, we come back to the same situation. Anything the army chief was able to use, quote unquote, against the government, as you say, or to undermine the government, as you say, the government created this situation. It was the government that allowed a man in Yaya. Y'all know who's the current chief of staff? Y'all going to track the current chief of staff career in the army. Was he ever allegedly involved in the torture of African Guyanese youths? Was he ever allegedly involved in the interception of calls with the Rajakan equipment and so on and so forth with Yaya and the others? When they're hunting down young black boys like dogs and killing them? Huh? So if you're saying that an African Guyanese chief of staff and an African Guyanese commissioner of police were taking certain actions against the will of the government, then they were out hunting young black people, is undermining the government. I would say by all means necessary, undermine the freaking government, because you are protecting the people's lives in this society. You were determining what is a lawful versus an unlawful order. These clowns that we got in offices nowadays ain't doing that. That's my response. And that is why I allow this idiot to have a say every morning. Because he helps me to teach young people about the wickedness of the PPP. I see somebody's mentioning a Rokan camp. An entire family wiped out in the name of law and order. The PPP in government. Ask them who did it. Like the helicopter crash, they can't get the report yet? Call you on, good morning.
Greetings, 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 much greetings to us, human. Mr. Amsterdam, keep on doing what you have to do. Keep on saying what you have to say, because all what you're saying is so true. Remember, we live in a society where it is like a curse or a scorn to ourselves. We only remember the things that suited us when a situation like this arrived, that we could feel we could get mileage. Now, man. Now what I'm saying to you, no man is not perfect. But at the same time, remember, what happened is not history. It's part of life still, because it is there on the record. You see what you announced this morning among the names you pull up? Now, what I'm saying to us human, why are we so deceitful in the eyes of God? If these people really serve a God, or whatsoever the serve is, whatsoever religion, I ain't getting personal. But if we should take 2 steps back and ask ourselves questions, where we are, where we want to be for future generation, we will think different as human. I don't know when the day Guyana or Guyanese will live as Guyanese. The APNU AFC in the previous government wasn't a racial government. If there was racial, a lot of people wouldn't have left in certain positions when there was an authority. But again, we all understand that politics is a dangerous game. Politics is a game of the strongest survive. Now the guy who call and talk all these things about Winston Felix, whoever you want to talk about, he is just there as a puppet. Just when you say he's a puppet. Look what happened to Muhammad that day. Don't matter Raja Khan. We know what happened to Raja Khan. What would they do with Muhammad that day when the guy paper shots just shooting Main Street? I had a big press conference representing Muhammad. I don't have a problem with that. Then when you ask them a couple of weeks after for the interview, they're saying they're getting an interview to show what transpired. But still, a couple of years after, these same people who was protecting the idol, which was Muhammad, they have a problem with that. Now they're turning back now. They bring the FBI for start out the case where they're claiming now that he is part of the killing of paper shots. Now you telling me something, the call we're calling and attack inside of foolishness. Why he don't take himself and bag himself and put himself in some hole and understand this thing didn't happen 20 years ago. This thing happened about 3-4 years ago. He could remember what happened since with Felix, whoever it is, or whoever the prime chief was, whoever the commissioner police, but he remember what happened 3-4 years ago. The same man who was protecting them, were claiming that the fact we got the East Coast, the man give them vehicle. The same man, the same system we he representing, turn against the same man. Because they want political mileage. They ain't talking nothing about that, you know. He ain't calling and saying that Mohammed or the PPP government wrong deal Mohammed. Whatsoever issue they got, it's a day business. But he talking about something what happened with we people. Again, Mr. Kadaki, Guyanese understand what we understand, what we just and see life, see this country as ours. The day we got to understand that this country belongs to us Guyanese, we will be thinking different. If we think it individually, with that just how we did today in this society. So if meanwhile go back to all his killing what happened all the years ago. Couple of years ago, a man gets shoot, camera walking. No camera walking back, they said some vehicle got born somewhere of the highway. They know nothing but it. No camera shows this vehicle pass, the whole is man quite up. But still today now, you're investigating the same man over the same order. And these people ain't seeing it and understand that these people making you a fool. Guyanese, open your eyes and let me stop this issue about race. Think as Guyanese. The government do something wrong and you chooses to get rid of them, get rid of them. Not because it's your color or your party. Well, Mr. God, that's all I have to say for this morning. Have the best rest of the day. Peace be unto you and your family. Peace be unto Apnu. Let us understand when the 4th of September come, put we X on the place of success for our country, our children, our generations to come. Have a blessed day, Mr. Amsalam.
Thank you for your call. And as usual, you know, a lot of this information is not far from you, you know. All you gotta do is Google. Quick time you can find it. It's not far from you at all. Call you on. Call you're on.
Yes, good morning to you and all my black brothers and sisters in Guyana. First thing first, let me repeat myself. We're going to get there. And let me repeat again what Mr. David said. Black brothers and sisters, do not scatter your vote. Do not spread your vote. That is a foundation to get victory by not scattering your vote. Young people, you have to go outside there and represent yourself. Don't depend on nobody for go outside there to represent you. Because if you stay home, it's a vote stay home. So if you go with the same person who going out there, going to be twofold, not one. I see the video, but let me say this here too. The word of God already teach us a lot of things. One, many are called, but few are chosen. It's not who are the Lord will enter into the kingdom of heaven. And he said, it is very hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom. He never said that a rich man will never enter. It's 1 and 2. I say 1 and 2, not the word of God. But it demonstrates with a sharp man up in the tree. When Jesus called him down and said, come, talk to me. Explanation. He said, Lord, if I overcharge any of my customer them, I will give them back tenfold. But the message is very hard for a rich man because God see and know a rich man is going to poor people for getting riches. That video what I see there, where them could go, they would make big tent and put chair for them police supporters sit down. But last night, when I watched that video, black man stand up and I pray and I clap. That is why David said, the fool said that there is no God, because David looked at people, hear them talk. When I used to say that when the government break down, are you still there? When I said, when that government go down and break down that black sister home, and to remove her because she don't want to give a place. I say, where are Nigel London? Where are the other preachers them to come out and stop that for a next home breakdown? And the court Martin Luther King, because when Martin Luther King heard what happened to his black sister, he stepped outside to make sacrifice. But today, as God live for see, all them Christians come together to be fools. It is totally stupid what they are doing. And black man never get it right. This is not where I talk. My grandmother said, who's thing for me will rotten for them? PNC and WPA fighting for black people from since PNC 64, WPA 70, becoming to follow my friend David Hines. What's wrong with black people? It is shameful. Mommy, do not have a your vote, a your back. Me keep telling something to see to. I'm gonna go. When Mohammed go wrong black people, he sit down and he threw and fail. And black men alone talk. Why? When Mohammed tell you what he gonna do for you? Thank you very much for your time.
Forget when the PPP formed the target squad. When Ronald Gagway was home affairs minister, we are afraid that Steve Murray used to control the target squad. And as long as you're young and you're black and your name just got pop up as a thief, you used to be murdered. You could go to who you want, go nobody in target squad never got charged for murdering the young black Afro Guyanese. Gagway, if you go to Mr. Gagway, he's going to look into it. And black people can sit back and allow and look at the PPP and say dancing but doing the cup. When the target squad any police station in Guyana, then no senior police officer could come and loot you and let somebody from target could come and say you're no see. That was the power of the target squad. How could black people sit down and realize that you see 4 heavily armed police target squad members, you will charge them with a cutlass? Are you seeing heavily armed target Leon Fraser or Steve right on a vehicle and you running to charging them with a cutlass? Why people don't get sense? These people used to kill you and what do you do for the courts? You are innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. When you talk to you, none but you guys, you're just another name, you're a thief. They had used to buy a thief. They had no use for the courts. When talking to you, they had no use for the court. when we never said boxing should check up there, anything come out the story? Nothing come out the story. Little me get shot in prison, anything come out the story? Yeah, you could come tell black people the PPP killed for them. What about all them black people the target squad killed? And then when the target squad is so famous, the bandits take over. Why black people don't get sense? They don't like y'all. They just use y'all to kill y'all. Thank you very much, Mr. Kadaki.
Thank you for your call. Hold the calls again. Hold the calls again. This is an important session, you know. Hold the calls again. I'm begging you, I'll hold the calls again. I want to read this to y'all. The Good Hope Trio, Brahma and PNC concerns. This is a page used to be called Guyana Under Siege. I don't know who controlled it, but that was a page, Guyana Under Siege. It says this. The editor's note says, on December 3, 2002, 2002, 3 men were arrested by an army patrol at Good Hope on the east coast of Demerara. The army patrol had gone beyond the area it was supposed to patrol in the Buxton vicinity. The 3 men are Shahid Khan, also known as Roger Khan, Harun Yahya, and policeman Sean Belfield, or Sian Belfield. The vehicle they were found with carried bulletproof windows, and inside was an arsenal of high-powered weapons, night vision goggles, and a laptop computer capable of intercepting cellular calls, placing locations of callers, and providing digitized maps of Georgetown and the southern east coast villages, including Buxton. All of them were subsequently freed of all charges later. Let's get a background. December 3, 2002, the Army Patrol intercepted these criminals. Can't call them nothing else. What they had? The vehicle was bulletproof. They had night goggles and so on. They had heavy artillery. Why you freeze? I hope people hearing me. Right? They had heavy artillery. All of that. The army arrested them with. Let me continue the story so you're going to understand what I'm telling you about who create the loopholes and who use the loopholes. Recent events still unfolding after the chance discovery of a cache of arms at Good Hope, East Coast Demerara, have had a chilling effect on the entire nation. Our worst fears and suspicions have been confirmed that there exist in Guyana death squads operating both within and without the ambit of the law enforcement agencies and at the behest of the PPPC regime. The implications are too grave to be ignored and tell of a diabolical plot to hunt and exterminate not only criminals, but also anyone showing opposition to the fascist regime calling itself the PPPC. It is necessary for the sake of clarity to set out in chronological order the facts as they present themselves, while being aware at the same time that there may be a few missing pieces which members of the Guyana Defense Force, the Guyana Police Force, and some citizens and persons who are not members of either security and law enforcement agency may possess. 1. On Wednesday, 2002, December 4, at about 21:45 hours, a GDF patrol in the area of Good Hope on the East Coast intercepted a vehicle which appeared suspicious, and after searching the vehicle, discovered a veritable arsenal capable of launching and sustaining a small war. These weapons included 2 modified M16 assault weapons with night vision capability, 1 Uzi submachine gun with silencer, 2 Glock 9mm pistols, 1 12-gauge shotgun, other small caliber weapons, bulletproof vests, helmets, and other military-issued equipment. 2. 3 men were discovered in the vehicle, of whom 1 is a notorious member of the Black Clothes Squad. 3. A computer and other electronic gadgetry were also discovered, along with digitized electronic maps and plans of Georgetown and certain targeted villages along the East Coast. 4. The men Their vehicle and weapons of war were taken into custody. 5. Searches were carried out at various other locations following which other items were seized. 6, and I want you to pay particular attention to 6. Bharat Jagdeo, President and Commander-in-Chief, and other members of the PPPC hierarchy sought to influence the police through coercion to secure the release of these men. The president even upbraided the army for taking decisive action when only last month at the passing out parade of the latest batch of officers, he is quoted as saying that the use of the military in crime-fighting activities was both legal and constitutional and would be continued. Jagdeo, as usual, was speaking from both sides of his mouth. On Monday, 2002, December 9, the men were released by an order of Justice Jainarayan Singh after the police failed or refused to proffer charges against them. In the words of the police, further investigations are continuing to see what actions could be taken against the felons. I wonder if those investigations are being completed. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, are you morning? Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. It is now 25 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. I'm sure you've heard quite a lot. And I want you to not just hear, but I want you to cause others to hear. Share the program. Share the program. Invite others to up across and listen. It's Thursday morning. We were supposed to have Winston Jordan on. And I'll call him shortly so he can come and he can teach us. And he can open our eyes, as we like to say. Right? How was it last night? How was it yesterday? Did you achieve any of those SMART goals you set? If you didn't, then take heart. Today's another day. Try again. Try until you succeed. Please do. Don't give up. Don't let it beat you into subjection. Keep on trying. Keep on trying. One day, you're going to succeed. I know that. One day, you're going to succeed. Like how we got the PPP on the ropes right now. Yeah, we're going to get them. Wildman Fenton. Why I ask your female family member if she got a problem with my oral hygiene? As last night was a night to remember. Must ask her where she been between the hours that you couldn't find her. I'll have a good day. Let me call Winston Jordan. I see they got a battle brewing in front of GCOM, as is usual. Nothing surprising there. The corrupt PPP said they've been out there before APNU, but there is no evidence to show that, right? I said the thing set aside ago. Mr. Jordan, good morning. Welcome to the program. How are you doing, buddy?
Good morning, Kadaki. Good morning to you. Here enjoying the weather. A rainy morning. I don't know if it's raining by your end there in Buxton.
Yes, it rained a bit. And I know you will enjoy it because it cools down the place and it gives you water, which Guyway is not doing.
Boy, that thing got its pluses and it got some small minuses because, like I had indicated to you earlier, I have this problem that I've been getting with my knee. So it gets aggravated with this kind of weather, you know. And even though the doctor is claiming it's not arthritis, I don't know what on earth it is, but it's just there, you know. But we got to thank it's thankful Thursday, and we got to thank the Lord for bringing us through another Thursday so that we could enjoy all his blessings and glories, and also to be a part of the living, notwithstanding it's challenging to live in this country, you know, but it's better living than dead, as some people say. We got a lot to talk about today. You know, every day we got a lot to talk about, but there's so much to talk about, especially during this silly season of ours. Before I get to the substantive topic I want to deal with today, spare me some tangential ones. for us recognizing finally that the 12th Parliament has been dissolved. You know, I don't recall, I tried to read anywhere where you had to consistently call upon the government to dissolve a parliament after they would have indicated when is the date of the elections. You know, I don't know whether they think they were being smart or whatever, but it was rank foolishness and stupidity to name a date for elections and not saying when parliament will be dissolved. You know, I tried to go back as far as I could to see when people name the date, when did they say that the parliament will dissolve? And it's almost always at the specific time that they name the date that they indicate when the parliament will be dissolved. So what was this foolishness? It's only in Guyana you could find these ruptures, and we stand out like a sore thumb where these matters are concerned. But I see credible news, Asher Duncan Page is suggesting that there may be some set of tugging and pulling at Freedom House over these matters. And, you know, but after the tug and pull, parties on political matters, they should come to national matters. But happily, they have taken us out of our torture. The 12th Parliament, in my book, will go down as easily the worst parliament in the history of this country. Easily. It is the worst parliament in the history in this country, presided over by the worst speaker in the history of this country. You know, I mean, when you consider speakers like Rahman B. Gadraj, Alin, Saston Ryan, the longest sovereign speaker, and so on. Even grudgingly, Ram Koran, and not so grudgingly Tratman, because he ranks among the top speakers that we would have had in the parliament. And also, I'm not forgetting back in Scotland. They all try to run a parliament that, with all appearances of being neutral, all appearances I see. I mean, clearly, if one party is electing a speaker, then there will be some inherent bias, especially when it comes to certain rulings. But there was genuine appearances of unbiasedness by these speakers that I call, notwithstanding the fact that they were nominated by the ruling party. But in this 12th Parliament, for the first time, with me following parliamentary procedures and so on, and how they operate, this is the worst. It was the most biased parliament that you come about, and it's the parliament that virtually didn't even recognize that an opposition existed. You know, and so one hopes that the 13th Parliament, even though they say 13 is an unlucky number, let us hope that it will be a considerable improvement. That it will be a considerable improvement over the 12th Parliament. When you look at in terms of achievement, the 12th Parliament also will go easily the war in terms of the sectoral committees meeting, in terms of sectoral committee reports, you know, on all these different things. So good riddance, goodbye, and let us welcome the 13th Parliament, which we hope will be one that is diverse, one that will have a speaker who understands his or her role, and who understands that notwithstanding being elected by the majority in the House, that having been elected, that they have to sit and show some high degree of impartiality in their learnings and in their rulings and so forth. All right, so goodbye 12th Parliament, hello 13th to come. Another point I want to recognize, I want to recognize the APNU launch on Sunday gone. It was a spectacular launch. It was well choreographed and well organized, and for that I give all of those who were behind the scenes and in front early kudos where that is concerned. In fact, for it to have caught the eyes and the attention of none other than Christopher Ram, who's easily among the leading commentators in Guyana on all kinds of subjects, and who you can't claim to be a rabid supporter of the PNC/APNU/AFC, right? Because when you look, don't forget, Christopher Ram's name was put up by the PPP to be chairman of the Elections Commission. It was Christopher Ram who, when the PPP were installed in August of 2020, who was quickly nominated to do audits of certain places, including NISIL and the Lotto Fund, right? And it's Christopher Ram who, during the post-February electoral developments, who took the then government to court in a number of cases, right? So they can't say that he's some rabid APNU/support and so on. But it was Christopher Ram, in a letter to the editor in Starbuck News, July the 8th, 2025. The headline of that letter was Norton's Resurgent APNU. And let me just read a quick quote from it. It says, Aubrey Norton repeated the show, or represented the show of its party's resilience on Sunday evening with a huge turnout at its 2025 elections campaign launch at the Square of the Revolution. It must trouble the PPPC that for all its confidence from endorsements, with all its confidence from endorsement from recent members of the APNU AFC, from several cash grants with promises of more to come, from the convenient attendance of tens of thousands of part-time workers at its events, and the demonizing of David Hines, that the PNCR or APNU could attract such a crowd. I agree. I totally agree with this analysis, observation, commentary, because we all know over the past months the pressure that the APNU was under, well, certainly the PNC was under. We all knew the attacks, personal attacks, both public and otherwise, and the snide remarks that were thrown at Aubrey and so on. But he was able to deflect, answer, and whatever else. And Sunday, if anybody wanted another reason to support the APNU and Aubrey as its leader and director as the prime ministerial candidate, Sunday should have removed the last vestige of doubts. And you know, Sunday also brought out what some of us have been saying, that if only we could look at the bigger picture, which is removing the PPP from government. If only we can look at the bigger picture, which is one of unity and national development. All those who, well, not all, I'm not unhappy with some of them who have gone. Some of them who have gone have never really been in. They've never really been in. It reminds you of somewhat of some of those families who used to have one family in the PNC and one in the PPP, or one family supporting the PNC openly and one supporting the PPP openly. So in that way, you don't lose. So we have something not necessarily akin to that, but you had situations where certain people were in the APNU/AFC physically, but they were not there mentally, right? Back in the days when I was at University of Guyana and doing development economics, I was introduced to this concept of psychological migrant. The professor said most Guyanese are migrants, either physically or psychologically. And he went on to explain that the psychological migrants are those who are still in Guyana, perhaps with little hope to migrate, but they're still in Guyana, hoping to migrate, waiting on the call, or waiting for the sponsorship or waiting for visa. But meanwhile, while they are waiting, they're exposed to television that shows them basketball, American football, golf, and all these different things, American, that shows them all kinds of different American foods, hamburger and whatnot. Shows them brand name clothes, the Jordans and the whatnots and so on. And they bombard their relatives to send barrels of all of those things, the foods and so on. So when we grow up on plantain and cassava and dumpling and all these kinds of things, once we get exposed to that TV with all those things, we don't want dumpling and plantain and so on anymore. We want KFC. Back in those days, KFC wasn't here, but we want KFC. We want something looking like KFC. And that is why up to today, you could still see people flocking to all of those fast foods. The faster they open, the faster they flock at them and forget all those foods that brought us up and kept us safe. And kept us safe. And kept us away from diabetes and so on. Every now and then you grow up, you might have seen a fat boy and so on, and we said they got breaks and so forth. But now, you look at WHO studies, particularly in the Caribbean, we might be among the fastest growing regions with these kinds of NCDs, non-communicable diseases, where diabetes, high blood pressure, and so on are affecting even, not diseases that are only for the elderly. They're now affecting the young, the teenage, the preteens, and so on. Yeah, so we had psychological migrants. So these people, they were there physically, but psychologically, they were on the other side. And they are some of the most dangerous people you could have among you. Some of the most dangerous people you could have. Some of them have come out openly and said they never left the other party. But they were there openly seen with folks. They were in the belly of the coalition government. But now they openly said, I never left the other party. And it's a similar thing of those others who have gone over. So wish them luck, goodbye. But there are others who I feel had a great future in the party. A great future. And all they wish to do is to show political savagery. Not political savvy, not savagery. I'm sorry. Political savvy. And show that when the going gets tough, they are equipped to overcome those challenges. I remember, and I always said, a number of people, Nagamoto, Kemraj, Hami Green, and all these people, were lifelong heavyweights in their party. And they were pushed over the edge and they left. Hami ultimately returned when the conditions were right. But he didn't want to leave, but the conditions were right and he returned. And there was a former prime minister of Jamaica who headed an observer mission. I think it's the Commonwealth Observer, because I believe Owen Hart headed the OAS. One of the two, they might interchange. Golden, right? Bruce Golden, I think it was his name. But he was an ardent supporter of the JLP. And he had his times and his challenges and so on, and he decided to leave the party and form his own party. He was wiped out in an election, wiped out, completely wiped out. And in Jamaica, you lose your deposit. So he would have lost his. But he quickly came to his senses and rejoined the JLP. And after rejoining the JLP, he ultimately became Prime Minister of Jamaica. The point is, you have to show your mettle when times are rough, when you get the ultimate of challenges. And if you're a Christian, you have to believe in that, because Jesus Christ went through the ultimate and he didn't back off. He didn't back off. And he will expect his servants to be similarly forged. But we have people who don't see the bigger picture. We have people who don't see the bigger picture. I was joisting with a friend yesterday, I did before yesterday, about these small parties and so on. And I just, in passing, said, by the way, would these small parties, all of them combined, if they were able to combine themselves, be able to feel an observer for each one of those polling stations? Let's say about 3,000. Or are they going to depend on SOPs given to them by the PPP, as was done in the last election? The bigger picture is always lost when we allow our egos to get the better of us. And I know a lot of people I talk about it are my friends, and in my thing they still remain friends, you know. But it saddens me that we can always be seen to be fighting among ourselves for things, as far as I'm concerned, that don't matter. And in that process, miss the ultimate prize. The ultimate prize. Because we have to be honest. Like the 2020 election, this one here is even more important. It's even more important because the PPP has shown us over the last 5 years what they have in store for us. And for them to enjoy another 5 years minimum, it's going to be living hell. Living hell. And I don't know what more it should have taken if we understood that, and understood that we have to do whatever it takes to support each other, and get to that finish line and cross over, right? I don't know what it takes, but it is what it is. And so we have to make do with what we have and see how we could maximize given what is now available. It is what it is. They say both done Ghana falls. And so we have to maximize what we have. Some people point that if you have strong institutions, then it doesn't matter who governs or who's in power if you have strong institutions. But that's where the problem is in Guyana. We don't have strong institutions. We don't have strong institutions. And daily you can see, daily there's a cry. There's a cry for all kinds of things. There's a cry for public service. There's a cry for justice. There's a cry in consumer affairs. There's a cry social. There's all kinds of cries. We don't have strong institutions. And in the absence of strong institutions, you then can't say it doesn't matter who is in power or so. So that is my point on that. And I will only end off by saying the APNU must now ramp up. Don't sit back and beat your chest because you had a launch, a fulfilling launch. That must be the start of greater things to come. So you have to ramp up, right? You have days left. You have days left. You have to ramp up. As I said, there are going to be a lot of blind alleys. The opposition, the government is going to throw a lot of things out there. And you're going to spend a lot of your time. You're going to spend a lot of your time trying to clarify, correct, and all this kind. Meanwhile, your message will not be getting out. Will not be getting out. So you have to strategize on that and make certain that the message that you have is getting to the people. Yeah, they're gonna try. They're gonna try that as I'm gonna show you just now. They're gonna try it, and no matter what, they're gonna try it, and they're gonna try it. And every time they try it, you have to have your strategies to make certain that your message for this election is not being drowned out by what they are saying, or you're using up valuable time in that. And to the people of Guyana, especially the youths, especially the youths. I heard a lot of you say you're in voting. You're in voting because neither of the two parties looks after your interests. I want to say something to you. It is very unfortunate. I say this over and over again on this program. It is very unfortunate that we are no longer teaching Guyanese history in schools. That we no longer have the extended family to educate us. You could have learned a lot of tales from your grandfather and your grandmother and your great-grandfather and so on. These days, people are making children so young. The mothers themselves or the fathers themselves didn't even have opportunity to learn about themselves, much less to impart onto the new ones that are coming up. So you got a lot of youths in particular who are tech savvy and all these kinds of things, but who are devoid of history. Who are devoid of history. Sad to say, but this is true. Some of them are excelling in all kinds of things, but not understanding from whence they came. From whence they came. And you can excel in all these different things. But if you don't know where you came from, how are you going to know whether you're making a difference in terms of what you're excelling in? Our foreparents fought, died. They fought from the time they were enslaved as free people roaming Africa as kings and queens and princesses and so on. When they were captured in the most violent, inhuman system called slavery, brought across the Atlantic to these shores where they met the indigenous people. And then it came, then it began. a debased system. Our people fought. Many jumped overboard rather than coming here. Many did everything rather than be slaves. But ultimately, our ancestors fought. The plantation, the planters, the colonials, and everybody until they were freed. Then came the indentured. They also, with their own struggles. And as a people, we fought for the right to vote and the right to independence. And who are you today to say you're not voting? I'm not telling you who to vote for. But you can commit the greatest crime and you could insult your ancestors if what they fought for in terms of the vote is given up so lightly. Me, I'm voting because, brother, if you don't vote, sister, you have voted for the person who won the election. Simple as that. And those who are selling their votes cheaply for a small contract, for a $5,000, is that what your ancestors fought for? For you to sell the vote? Know that you have the right to vote? I say youths in particular, but every soul in this country. Your ancestors fought for that right. In some places, even in some big developed countries, they are trying to take back that right from what your ancestors fought for you to have today. And you are giving it up willingly when you say you're not voting. I don't know how many youths are on this program. I don't know how many. But I hope the program can spread widely. And I hope the APNU and all the small parties can impress upon the people in their walkabouts, in their campaign meetings, in their campaign slogans, and so on, the right to vote, the reason why they have to vote. And in particular, Region 4. I don't know what it is about the urban, but they seem to have higher percentages in the rural areas voting than in the urban areas. Turnout in Georgetown and Region 4 always seem to be lower than turnout in many of the outlying regions. So this is something the APNU, who has a very big task ahead because they don't have the monies of a WIN or a PPP. I don't know how true it is, but Sherrod says just for the one launch in Kitty coming up on Sunday, the PPP is spending $800 million. Right? I don't know how true it is, but quoting from credible sources, that's what he's saying. Now, when you got that kind of money, when you have that kind of money, you need an Elon Musk now to come and help you on the APNU. And they seem to have a flag war between the blue and white and the German flag. But I hope these issues can resonate, and it's not too late to convince everybody, but especially the youth, that the right to vote, your ancestors died, were maimed, bruised, and everything else for that right. And for you to simply give it up, all right, is an injustice to your ancestors, an injustice to yourself. And you have to admit, and you don't vote, you voted for the person who thing. Now I heard David at the meeting saying, don't split the vote. Well, that goes without saying, because, as I said, I name it the Jordan conundrum. You can't divide a minority to achieve a majority, right? You can't divide a minority to achieve a majority. So you can't split up the vote and flake off the vote and hope. It will take about 7,000 or thereabout votes for one seat coming up, I would think, or more, because 65 seats with a list of 700 and something thousand. On average, roughly 500 something thousand people vote. So that will be about 8, 6 is 48. Yeah, about 8,000 for a seat. Now, over the last 2020 election or thereabout, it was less than 8,000 for a seat. And the seats were shared largely between APNU plus AFC and the PPP, with one left back seat going to the Giant Party. But those Giant Party combined singly, because I doubt whether they'll have any Giant Party this time around based on what happened. Some of them got, I think, 400 or something, 2,000 or something, 1,900 or something. Nowhere near getting a seat at the individual level. Nowhere near. But again, as I said, book sense without common sense is nonsense. All right? So we leave that at that. And the last quick point I want to read is today reading the Stabrook News this morning, reading the Stabrook News before I came on here. Of all the things Stabrook News. Stabrook News in today's newspaper has a short article with headline, Maize had the most students in the top 179. Really, Stabrook News? Is this news? Really? Stabrook News had one of the most powerful editorials on the common entrance and the glorification of these 179 or those who go into the 6 or the top 6 schools in so-called top 6 schools. Powerful editorial and so on. And Stabrook News comes today and tells you what Mayors had the most in the 179. Who cares? And why is this news? After all 179 people, students, pupils, were there in the newspapers. The Ministry of Education put it there, and you published it. Anybody could do the counting, which I showed they did. So why is this news? Aren't you now turning around glorifying the 179, the very editorial that you had saying that why you're glorifying this and so on? Aren't you not doing that in yourself? A brickbat to Stabrook News on this nonsense. And what does it mean anyhow to say that Maize had the most, 22 or 20 out of the 170? What does that mean? You didn't say how many students Maize put up to the exam. They could have had 22 out of 200. Another school might have had 12 out of 50. So what on earth is this nonsense that you put in there and things? Shame on you, Stabrook News, a quality newspaper, that you will come up with this nonsense here. And after your strong editorial that you had there, didn't you read about I think it's a indigenous person, or certainly a person who lives in one of the indigenous communities, 12-year-old girl who committed suicide, who had just written common entrance? Look, a brickbat. Normally you'll get kudos, but you get a brickbat for the nonsense. That precious space, precious inches in Stabrook News could have been used to bring valid and credible news to the population, rather than this nonsense about 22 and 12 from this place and 10 from this place and 9 from this place. That has absolutely nothing, means nothing, means absolutely nothing, nothing. And for those who wanted to do it, they could have done it, because all 179 names were published in the newspapers and the schools where they came from and the marks that they got. All of that could have been done by anybody who wanted it to do it. Anyway, that is the 3 points I wanted to raise before I come to my substantive issue of today. You know, the Sunday Chronicle of July the 6th, 2025, at page 12. Before that, I must admit that I got a email from former President Granger early morning with a story of this ilk. And then somebody else sent me this Sunday Chronicle, July the 6th, 2025, page 12. It had the heading, APNU plus AFC taxed everything under the sun. A heading obviously quoting Jagdio from the Corner Shop show last week, Thursday. Unlike his previous rantings about the imposition of 200 taxes, you know, he had been going on with this since 2017, during the budget debate. 2016, December, during the budget debate of the 2017 budget and the post-budget debate, and so on. Since then, he had been going on about us imposing 200 taxes. He settled on this 200 number. And then it had been picked up by his other colleagues. Even former President Ramatar, as I said, picked it up, and certain others. And certain others. 200 taxes. And I had called on him through the speaker, then Speaker Barton Scotland, for him to name those 200 taxes that he keeps spewing in the parliament, or face sanctions. And I don't recall what was the ruling of the then speaker, but I rather suspect he had pulled back and began using the 200 outside of parliament. But never once was he able to list them so people will get what it is that he's talking about. And I don't know whether he was trying to push me or other members of the coalition to list them for him. But he never did. In fact, as recent as the 31st of May, 2023, when questioned by Annette Ferguson, on the then honorable member in the 12th Parliament, for him to provide a detailed list of the 200 taxes and fees, because now they have brought it from the 11th Parliament to the 12th Parliament. Ashley Singh, who was meant to answer the question by the honorable member then, had this to say, quote, "The list of taxes and fees imposed by APNU AFC government during May 2015 to August 2020 has been extensively reported on and ventilated in the public domain," end of quote. Yet again, he follows his boss. He follows his boss. He doesn't provide the parliament where a request was named to list the taxes. But he comes up with this answer. Now, I'm almost sure, had he been in the Parliament of Barton, Scotland, he would not have gotten away with this answer. Because you are the ones who keep claiming that in the Parliament, the 200 taxes were imposed by the coalition government. So how come you can't list these taxes? And by the way, I remember doing a program sometime, it's either 2021, 22, 23, or one of them, in which I gave a definition of what is a tax versus what is a fee and other fiscal imposts. And when I did that, Jaguar suddenly moved from 200 taxes to 200 taxes and fees. So it was no longer 200 taxes, it was now 200 taxes and fees. After hearing this clarification, and that is why I was forcing them to list the 200 taxes. I would have had a great laugh. I would have had a great laugh when they listed it. And perhaps recognizing the trap that was being set for them, they run out now and add fees. And they can't make up their minds. He can't make up his mind. 200 taxes is what he had put out there for years. But I think earlier this year or during the budget debate, yes, I think it was during the budget debate on the 2025 budget, at one of his corner shop shows, he said he had recounted it. And it's more like 380 taxes and fees. But last week, he apparently recounted it again and he came down to 300. Go bells, boy. Go bells. Repeat a lie often enough and it will sound like the truth, or it becomes the truth. Well, we can't allow it to become the truth. We can't allow it to become the truth. So in this article, they repeat the 200. Jordan tax everything under the sun. He advises people to go to Jordan budget speeches and go to the back of those speeches and you will find an annex of fees and taxation increases. Well, I advise the very people indeed, go. Go. The budget speeches are public documents. Go. And you will find more than just taxes and fees. We will elaborate shortly. But can you imagine? Can you imagine? In 2025, days before an election, a head-on show of a leading political party in a government that controlled $5 trillion over the last 5 years. $5 trillion. A government that produced 6 budgets. The only thing that they could put in front of them, or what seems to be their banner going into the election, is to compare their $5 trillion with the coalition government with its 1.2 trillion over all 5 years. That's the only thing that they have. These people are barren of ideas. They don't have traction. They don't have traction, so they fall back. Let me tell you something. I saw the playbook of the PPP for the 2023 local government elections. It itemized a set of points that must be stressed in the public domain. And if they clarify or they rebut, say it over and over again. That's what the playbook had said. So all they have done is dust off that playbook. And they're using it here again. And he said it openly anyhow. He said he's going to use the performance of the coalition government as their banner headline heading into the election. Can you imagine? You had $5 trillion unheard of in the history of this country. 5 trillion. As against the coalition's 1.2. You had 5 unbroken years. 5 unbroken years. As against the coalition's 3 and a piece. And you had 4 times plus as much money that was available to the coalition. And instead of you saying your successes as your banner is coalition. And what coalition put taxes and so on. Yes, go to the back of all 5 of our budget speeches and see all the measures. Don't look partially, look at all the measures. And by the way, taxes, I will come back to it. So let me don't let me put it there at the moment. Don't let me put that there at the moment. That just go there and review all the measures that the coalition government put in place. And stop sidetracking people into taxes and this and that. And let people understand how it is that the cost of living in this country, where you now claiming, you remove all these taxes and so on. You are now claiming that you remove all these taxes. And yet, the cost of living in this country over the last 5 years is unheard of in the annals of this country, even when we had the hard times in the 70s, when you have massive devaluations, all those kinds of stories. You got there. I saw a thing yesterday. I don't know if it's dated or not, with pumpkin, a piece of pumpkin is $1,200. A slice of pumpkin, $1,200. I don't know whether it's a dated thing or not. But whether it's dated or not, it just goes, it reflects $1,200. And that in food alone, over the last couple of years, had increased by 75, on average, 75%, based on GMC figures. Don't bamboozle people. All these 200 and 300 taxes that you talk about that the coalition put in, what was the cost of living during our time? What was the cost of living? Entire period, average inflation, 0.9%, almost negligible. What you're telling people all, you see, ultimately, what affects your standard of living. You remove all the taxes that you claim, all have been removed. But yet still, look at the people's standard of living. Who is complaining about cost of living? Did you hear people complaining about cost of living in the coalition government? At a time when we were bucking the horse and giving people salary increases of a combined total of 77% in that short period? How much have you given them? How much have you given them? Don't let people don't get sidetracked. I often tell you, when the coalition government came in, it met a mess. Some we knew, some we didn't know about. The ones that we knew was that the economy was infested with drugs. And there was high crime in the system that the then government had refused to allow the British assistance and the Americans to set up the DEA in this country. This was a crime-ridden and a drug-ridden country. The country was being run on drugs. Drugs. But President Granger was strong on cleaning the economy. And immediately when he came to power, he re-engaged the British. He re-engaged the British to get back the technical assistance that they had withdrawn. And immediately engaged the Americans to station the DEA in here. And those two combined things, you gradually saw the economy being cleaned up and restoration of security in the country. And the economy in the first 2 years, 1.5 year, 2015 half year and 2016, was suffering from withdrawal symptoms because, as you well know, a drug user, when you withdraw the drugs from them, especially at the rate at which we were trying to do it in Guyana, and to help clean out the system, they suffer from severe withdrawal symptoms. And so we had that, we had the withdrawal symptoms in Guyana when we tried to remove the drugs. And of course, for the umpteenth time, we had the gaisukos, the rice and all these things where we had to find tremendous money. You know, a colleague of mine 2 days ago, I think it was, a cabinet colleague of mine asked me to resend him some information on rice. And I sent it to him. And as I sent it to him, I read back some of it. And I saw in 2015 how much money we had to put. How much money we had to put. And the questions I had to answer that were asked by then member Irfan Ali. And the questions that I had to answer in relation to rice. A problem that they left. A problem that they left. But he wanted to pretend of being magnanimous by asking me these questions that they were asking on behalf of the welfare of the rice farmers. I'm sorry we did not do a good job of putting it out there. I went back there and I saw some of the answers I gave him because they want to push the narrative that we didn't like rice farmers and we didn't like sugar workers and so on. So even as early as 2015, imagine, he was asking me those questions about rice. But I had put it out in there and I'm glad it's in the Hansard. The state that they left the rice sector in when we left. The state at which they left the sugar industry in when we left. And they wanted by magic for we to find the money to keep these two industries, their pet industries, going. Don't matter what, come hell or high water or what. And they were going to put enough pressure on us to make certain that we diverted enough resources or more than the fair share of resources to these two entities. Meanwhile, they're telling the private sector acolytes and adherents to hold your money, don't invest. So you get a pincer movement to stall the economy. Don't get sidetracked with 200 and 300 taxes and so on. Don't get sidetracked. And I'm happy you haven't. I'm happy you haven't. Because they give the impression as if taxes and fees are a bad thing. They give that impression. And they come in like knight in shining armor, riding the white horse, removing these taxes. What has it done to the average person. I said to you 1,000 times, and you know it. Unless you have a situation that is highly competitive, akin to perfect competition in the literature, you have a large number of small units, business units, such that when you pull a tax, it will result in the lowering of the price. Don't matter how much taxes you take off, that you say you meet and you take off, it will not rebound to the benefit of the consumer because there is no compunction to do so. None. There's no compunction to do so. None whatsoever. And all the consumers here will tell you of their experience. You glorify, I take off this tax, and you reduce what? The price ain't going down, it gone up. The only thing that they could account for really, is gasoline. Is gasoline. And right now, since there are no taxes on gasoline, it don't make a difference. When the prices go up, then you have to face it. None whatsoever. So the government is losing revenue and giving it to a small clique instead of to the consumers. Check it and you will see. The only time a consumer benefits directly is when you reduce the income tax, because that's a direct tax. But when you reduce indirect taxes, it is rare for the consumer to benefit. Rare. So all you would have done is transfer income from the government back to a small clique in the private sector. But we must know and be aware. I said this before, and I will go through it again, because if they want a showdown where this is concerned, let me give them the showdown. The corner shop show ain't gonna outrank this show here. Because this show brings facts, data, analysis, and most of all, you can be guaranteed that what I am saying here, I am qualified to say it. Now, nobody likes taxation. None. Just as how nobody in like debt. But they say there are only two things that are certain in this life: debt and taxes. So we can't run away from taxation. So the question is, how do we get a tax system that has all the qualities of fairness, equity, efficiency, and all these different things, confidence, and so on? How do we do it? Because it's only then we can be assured that a large number of taxpayers will willingly pay not only their taxes, but their true and fair share of taxes. Guyana has had a perennial problem of taxes and tax payment. And as a result of that perennial problem, we have had a broken system. A system that taxes only a small part of the economy. Whether that economy is divided up between parallel and non-parallel, business versus individual, region versus region, sector versus sector, and so on. And when you have situations in Guyana where you have a high stratification or classification or ethnicization of professions and jobs, it magnifies itself. What do I mean? Well, we know Guyanese of African descent, for whatever reason, for which we're not going to go through here, we know the history, and it left for some time, David Hines or one of them, they gravitate to the public sector. And Guyanese of Indian descent and other descent, except Amerindians, gravitate to business and so on. Before they even get their pay packet, those who gravitate to the public sector, their monies are taken out at source. So they can't dodge taxes. They have to pay. Those who gravitate to the private sector and so on, and by the way, I'm speaking generally here, not to any specific person, they got options. They got options. And it's those options that they exercise that allow them to pay taxes, little taxes, no taxes. And it's unfortunate, like I said. I will take you back over the last 2 decades quickly. None other than Jagdeo recognized the problem with taxes in Guyana, you know. And he, under his portfolio around 2009, you had the Forrest Duke report. You had the Forrest Duke report around 2009. Right? Where a study on the Guyana tax system was performed. People submitted the report. Right? And that was post introduction of VAT. That report was brought in, and like everything else in this country, nothing was done. It was thrown on the shelf. President Ramatar came in. President Ramatar came in, and immediately upon coming in, he set up a tax reform committee in December of 2011. And he set it up based, obviously you would have heard or seen the Duke report, the prior Duke report. But it all agreed that the tax system was in need of urgent, deep-seated reforms. In fact, commenting on this in his column in Stabrook News of February 26, 2012, Professor Clive Thomas said, quote, "So serious are the defects in our tax system that I do not believe that Guyana will be fubbed with anemic or banal recommendations from the Tax Reform Committee." This is the Tax Reform Committee that was set up by President Ramatar. He continued, quote, the tax base should be made as broad as possible given the desired goals of the tax system," end of quote. All the time, they were pointing to a basic weakness of our tax system in that it was too narrow. And as a result of taxing a narrow base, you have to have high marginal rates. You have to have high marginal rates. So Professor Thomas wasn't very sanguine about the report of the Tax Reform Committee because he recognized immediately that the composition of the committee alone will suggest that there wasn't a seriousness about tax reform in Guyana, about reforming the tax system in Guyana. In fact, he called for a national commission on tax to be set up as opposed to a tax reform committee. Nobody knows what happened to that committee. Nobody knows what happened to his recommendations. But by the time President Ramata exited government in May of 2015, we know for sure that Professor Thomas's observations and conclusion came through. Nothing much was done. So you continue to have a deformed tax system characterized by a narrow tax base, tax inefficiency, and so on. But everybody playing happy go along. Everybody playing happy. And nobody wants to bell the cat, which is far too many sectors. Far too many sectors. Far too many businesses are not paying taxes or not paying the true taxes. But it's all well and good to have an income tax system that directly taxes at source the income of the owners, large numbers of whom are Guyanese of African descent. There's always an unwillingness to spread the tax base because it will attack supporters of the PPP. I alluded on this program before to a study, a basic study that was done by GRA, I think it was circa 2016, or I think it was wrong 2016, or could have been 2017, where it was shown that in the depressed region of Region 10, they were paying more taxes than Region 6. Yes. The depressed region of Region 10, where unemployment was in excess of 60%. Unemployment. And where the only types of employment known was largely in government agencies. They were paying more taxes than in Region 6. So when we came into power in May of 2015, recognizing the deformity of the tax system, recognizing the injustice of the tax system, recognizing the poor administration of taxes in this country, we set about to do something about it. And in 2015, our government established another tax reform committee, only this time headed by professionals. Professionals. And let us remind ourselves who are the members of this tax committee. It was headed by Professor Maurice Odle. And let us be clear, Odle was identified by the then Dragon government to replace Clarence Ellis, who was then the alternate executive director at the Inter-American Development Bank in 2015. For no reason, you know, Clarence, everybody knows Clarence. He was the consummate professional. Consummate. And he was no lackey of Barnum. In fact, he got into a scrape with Barnum and he left. He left in 1982. So Professor Maurice Odle was identified and he declined. So at least Professor Maurice Odle was in the good books. Maybe he went in the bad books after he declined. So he was identified as the chairman of that tax reform committee, and other members were Christopher Ram, Godfrey Stacia, who is now the head of GRA, and Thomas Singh, the same Thomas Singh who did the study for the ILO on the sugar industry. The same Thomas Singh. So they can't claim, oh, we took people who are acolytes of the government and and so on. Those names I named there, you tell me if they were acolytes of the government. We didn't want acolytes. We wanted a professional job done, a job that once it was completed, we were going to implement. We were no longer going to put studies to dust and so forth. They completed their job in January of 2016. It was too late for us to discuss those findings in cabinet and to implement them in the 2016 budget. But definitely the 2017 budget, which was presented in December of 2016. Those measures, a number of those measures would find their way. So the committee report was presented and discussed. But there were some concerns about some recommendations which might have had some problems in society. So another effort was made, this time with the IMF CARTAC, Caribbean Technical Assistance Center in Barbados. They were invited to do yet another study. They were invited to do yet another study. And they completed their work within 3 months because they were gathering the Duke study, the tax reform study of Maurice Odell, and all the others and so on. And they come up with a study. And quite frankly, a lot of what they recommended actually mirrored closely what was recommended by the Tax Reform Committee. All these studies are there. Just like how we said, go to Jordan, annex anybody. These studies are there. These studies are there. And you could read them. And you could see the recommendations. And so in the 2017 budget, we decided to make a radical, not a gradual, a radical change in the tax system. When you have a cold, you can go for OTC medicine, over-the-counter medicine. But when that cold has become pneumonia, you can't use OTCs. You have to do radical intervention. Incisive intervention. And that is what we took in 2017. And say what you want about the coalition government, it never shied away. It never shied away from doing what happened to be, what had to be done. I mean, people meet me and telling me in quiet how we were bold enough to do. The PPP would have never have done it. I said, but look, somebody has to belly cap. We have taken a lot of flack for things that we did. We've taken a lot of flack for sugar industry. Sugar industry bleeding. And people are telling you, keep it open. Keep it open. One day it's going to come back. When we did things to the sugar industry, you hear we were bad. Rice industry, we did things for rice industry, right? Natural Resource Fund, we set up. Try to make it as apolitical as possible. But people now telling us quietly how we were bold enough to do these things. You know how many businessmen came to us and told us finally we were bringing some equity into the tax system? You know how many? Ask how many of them, as a result of our tax measures, were breathing easily. We did a lot of work on the smuggling, cigarettes, alcohol, all these things. We did a lot of work on it. They were breathing easily. Easily, they were breathing. But look at what's happening today. Look where smuggling is today. Look where smuggling is today. Back at record levels. They're smuggling all kinds of things: chicken, beef, pork, eggs, you name it. They're smuggling it. And look who is smuggling it. The same set of people. Yeah, I often are tired of the fact that when things were banned in Guyana in the 70s, early 80s, as I showed last week, it is African Guyanese who, using ingenuity and initiative, went out there and started trading. But it's unfortunate that today you can hardly point to a successful African Guyanese business that came out of trading. You could hardly point to such a business. And for the large part, they continue to remain vendors. They haven't moved on. The whole pavement and so on, cluttered with vendors of African descent. Whereas the large businesses and the merchants and the importance of peas and garlic and potato and all these different things are Guyanese of Indian descent. So while we had the initiative and so on, we didn't have that oomph to go the extra mile. But we're going to continue to talk about that, right? Because those are real stories, right? So 2017 saw a substantial revision of the tax system. Substantial revision of the tax system. And as I indicated on this program a while back, that when I was opening something at DDL on the East Bank there, my good friend Komal invited me to open it while I was minister. I think it was 2018, I think it was, or 2018 or 2019. And that he was extolling the virtues of his company and his good administration and so on. But he didn't mention the fact that, one, we had drastically reduced the taxes on local fermented wines and so on, for which DDL was thinking. We had drastically reduced the corporate income tax to 25%, one of the lowest in the whole Caribbean. We had done that, for which DDL will benefit as a manufacturing company. And we had drastically reduced smuggling of particular liquor, for which DDL will benefit. And he had to admit, after he went back to the podium, that these were successful measures in allowing them to breathe. We had a single-minded purpose that the hard-working businessmen should not be damaged by an underground economy that was involved in smuggling, that was involved in tax evasion, and everything else. Don't matter who they were affiliated to, politically or otherwise. I told y'all when we had the amnesty, the gold amnesty, where the PPP tried to paint us that is our friends we were trying to give away taxes to. And the Hansard will show that we weren't going to give only the gold sector. They tried to paint us in all kinds of things. It was the Gold and Diamonds Association who we met under their president, Mr. Adams, who asked for the amnesty in a budget meeting. And we gave the amnesty, but we gave it to everybody rather than a single sector, because our mantra was, if something was to be given, it will be given to the entire sector, not to one individual or one company. Some of them were so buzzy and body with the PPP that they couldn't even see what we were doing, that with a cut the navel string that they had to the PPP, and they could breathe on their own. They couldn't even see it. Some of them were so violent and vicious against us. I only have to tell you to go to Stabroek News, May 31st, 2022, in which I wrote a letter in response to one of them who's buzzy and cushy right now in the government. Go there and you'll see my letter. I know once I wrote that letter, he never once come back publicly and said a thing, because he couldn't rebut anything that I had said in that letter. He couldn't. But they love it when they talk and you don't answer them. So tell your folks to go at the back of my budget speeches and see what is there. And while they are looking, take a look at all the measures that we put in place to promote individuals, businesses, and everything in this country. We put in place to bring a fairer tax system. A fairer tax system. It talks about they come in and they remove these taxes. I ask again, you remove these taxes, who have they benefited? Who have they benefited? You remove taxes where people didn't even ask for it. You remove taxes in the private education sector. You remove taxes in the private healthcare sector. Who have they benefited? Who these taxes have benefited? Have they lowered operational fees, surgical fees, examination fees? Have they lowered them? No, but your intent is not to, as you claim, onboarding the so-called average consumer with these so-called taxes. Your intent is to fatten your friends, family, and supporters. That is what is your intent with removing those taxes. Check and see. Check and see. The cries of the people, whether it's Stabroek News Weekly, the cries of the people. I saw a young woman. She said she just came back from the gym. She was just coming back from the gym, and she stopped at Border Market, I think it was, to catch a couple of things to go home and cook. And she was shocked at the prices. She was shocked at the prices. And she said, where before she could have taken $2,000 and get a week's grocery, she now has to pay $10,000 to get days grocery. And she was so shocked. She was pleading. And yet still, these heartless people holding on for the miserly 8% for 6 months, while these people suffer in their so-called low-tax economy. They talk about how we put tax on electricity and on water. Let me tell you something. As I said before, and I say it again, that's why I say go to the very budget that he talks about, 2015 to 2019 budget that he talked about, and see for yourself the budget measures. Because budget measures got benefits, they got tax, they got non-tax, they got other. Go there and you see for yourself. That's the best thing he ever said on that corner shop show. And you will see in 2017, when we put VAT on electricity, it was electricity in excess of $10,000 per month. We are talking here 2017 compared to today, when by then you know we had stabilized electricity. When we were subsidizing electricity, go there and you will see we actually increased the subsidy on electricity. It is right there in the measures. Go there and you will see it. So we didn't just taxing electricity. We were taxing electricity that was in excess of $10,000. And the tax on water, the VAT kicked in for water usage in excess of $1,500 per month. $1,500 per month. How many people born $1,500 per month in 2017? In 2017, how many people use up water of thing? We have carefully calibrated and calculated that as to how many black tanks they would have had to use in a month before they actually meet to $1,500. So don't get carried away. Oh, you put tax on water, you put tax on electricity. Go and see what the actual measure said. Go and see what the actual measure said. And that's what I say to you. They come crying. I love to repeat this story, repeat it again. One private sector person come and he said, Mr. Jordan, all these taxes, they're killing my business, right? You know, you put tax on water, right? And it's killing my business. I said, friend, hold on. You say you're paying VAT now on water, right? He said, yes. I said, but you know that can't be true, right? Because GWI, who was under the managing directorship of Van West Charles, had indicated to me that they would have a problem in implementing the measure immediately because their computer system, which was under license from some British company, was not geared for them to implement it. And that they will require the person to come down and adjust the system for them to charge the 14%. And that this could not happen before the last quarter of 2017. But yet this man came to me early post-budget and tell me the VAT on the water was killing him. His business, well known to one of the bees. You hear lie? That is lie. Teacher Porcy must have been a great professor. What was killing his business? So, as I said, they had it out, many of them in the private sector at that time, had it out. God bless those who came to us and talked to us and were with us, supported us. But there were those minor ones who were vocal. And so I think it's in 2019, we decided to put a tax credit, or give a tax credit for the VAT on electricity and water. It was more a liquidity issue than a problem because they will pass it on. And if they were manufacturing, they could reclaim it. And if they were exporting, they would reclaim it. And so it would not affect their prices. But they think they were dealing with dummies. Everybody, if they could find a loophole and a pressure, will pressure you because they don't want to pay taxes. But they are going to claim all these services and more. And more. Do you see people, or they do it in the mayor and city council, or in NDCs? Oh, we pay with taxes and they ain't bringing they're not collecting garbage on time. Brother, you paying $8,000 taxes in a house in South Rhineville. I don't know about any other areas. I know about South. You're paying $8,000. $8,000 for a whole year of taxes. And you expect the mayor and city council to be able for 52 weeks pick up your garbage. Just garbage alone, but you're paying only $8,000. And the government is strangling the NDCs and the mayors and city councils and so on, strangling them, pressuring them, and then turn around and holler how the cities stink and the NDC places stink and the burial grounds stink. They don't have the capacity because they are being strangled by the central government. That is democracy. That is democracy. And they love to tell you how they came in 2020 and removed taxes on electricity and taxes on water and taxes on interior flight. Nonsense. Nonsense. Even though we didn't have a budget by 2020 by regulations, and in the context of the COVID, we had removed the taxes on electricity, water, domestic travel, and a range of goods, sanitation and other goods in connection with COVID and non-COVID. We had done that already. We had done that. So I don't know what they're crying for. But I send you again. I'm sending you again to the back of the estimates, back of the budget speeches, because that's where he sent you. And you will find among those budget speeches at the back. For 2015, here are some of the, can't name all the measures, but I'll name some as we go along. For 2015, here are some of the measures that we did. We restored tax-free overtime to workers in the bauxite sector. You will recall that this was callously taken away by the PPP and given to sugar workers. We gave duty-free concessions to fishing boats, spare parts in the fishing industry, equipment for fishing boats, equipment and supplies for use in processing plants, motor vehicles, and ATVs used in indigenous communities by Tushos. We exempted from excise tax on motor vehicles eligible members of the joint services, Tushos, and Tushos in indigenous communities. We zero rated for VAT the following additional items: yogurt, cereals, fresh carrots, Milo and Ovaltine, Nestum, mustard and mayonnaise, locally produced fruit juices, chow mein, vinegar, peas, ketchup, chicken sausages, Chinese sauce, baking powder, liquid detergent, cleansing agent, paper towels, and computer printers. Remember, this is 2015. And we zero rated for VAT purposes these. So think about it. These basic items were attracting VAT under PPP government. Yes. These basic items. And we came in 2015, removed it. We gave duty-free concessions to small and medium-scale miners on fuel, matins, ATVs, jackhammer drills, flex hoses, expanding metals, pumps, pump housing, impellers, shaft, and engines. We removed the income tax from NIS contribution of the employee. We reduced the tolls for Borby's Bridge from $2,200 to $1,900. We increased the old age pension, and we removed the discrimination in electricity and water subsidy. You know, when we came in, some pensioners were granted electricity subsidy and a water subsidy. And in keeping with our mantra of no discrimination, we incorporated that into the pensions of everybody. Whether you got electricity or subsidy, everybody will get it. Everybody will get it. That was our mantra. We increased salaries by 26.4% from a low minimum wage of $39,540 to $50,000. We increased the hourly rates of part-time sweeper cleaners by 54%. We paid a bonus of $50,000 in December. We paid a subvention for training to all trade unions. This was a force. All trade unions for their training activities, we gave a subvention to all of them. Previously, I think only the GTU enjoyed a subvention from the government in that regard. Now all the unions were given that. We increased the uniform allowance voucher from $1,500 to $2,000. We increased the payment to persons in hinterland who sold these uniforms by 25%, or from $800 to $1,000. We allocated $300 million to Georgetown City Council, and over $1 billion had been allocated between 2015 and 2019. If there is any regrets that I have in this case, is that we didn't use the opportunity to reduce the local government, the central government's influence over these local government authorities. And I think it was an opportunity that was not grasped. And so those LDC, those local government authorities and so on, they are in a chokehold at the moment. We introduced the SLED program and allocated $150 million, the Sustainable Livelihood and Entrepreneur Development Program that was targeting small entrepreneurs who could not access the banking system, right? $115 million we put into that program. And we allocated $543 million to the Community Infrastructure Improvement Program. We also reactivated the LEN, as you well know, the destroyed LEN in Linden Enterprise Network. We reactivated LEN and we allocated $155 million. Those were some of the measures in 2015. Notice I mentioned the fact that we had to find $12 billion for Gaisuko, nearly $6 billion for the rice sector. No, more than 6. In fact, based on the last thing, it was nearly 18 million US dollars, right? Yes, about $5.8 billion that we had to pay the rice sector, right? And all those other things. I mentioned those. I just tell you, go the back, and you will find all these same measures that I discussed, that I talked about here, right? In 2016, we removed the excise tax on motor vehicles under 4 years, under 1,500cc. Those vehicles attracted an effective tax rate of 118.7% and an excise tax of 30%. We reduced the excise tax from 50% to 10% on motor vehicles under 4 years between 1,500cc and 2,000cc. We exempted from import duty on motor vehicles imported by eligible public officers, qualifying remigrants, and settlers. We exempted from VAT parboiled rice and packaging materials. We exempted from income tax the income earned by artists. We exempted senior citizens from the payment of travel tax, passports, and driver's license. Now, I heard some story about on the passport side. I saw a video where a woman was saying that her father or something was who should have been eligible was denied this benefit, and they had to pay for the passport. I wish that will be clarified, because I said on the post that I don't think that can be possible, because this is the law. Once you are a senior citizen, 65 years and older, a Guyanese resident in Guyana, you are entitled to this benefit of not paying for a Guyana passport, right? As you are entitled to not pay the travel tax, which is that who you call departure tax, and as are you not required to pay for a driver's license. That was done by us in 2016. We increased the rebate granted by GPL from 10% to 15%. This is the subsidy that I just told you about. We increased that from 10% to 15% of your bill. We increased the tax threshold to $660,000, and we also paid a tax-free bonus of $25,000 in December of that year. In 2017, which was our big year of reforming the tax system and so forth, that he talks about that we were taxing everything and so on. This is some of the benefits in 2017. We exempted from taxes wind and solar energy equipment, water treatment and water recycling facilities, charging stations, and electric vehicles. We were ahead of the time. They're telling you about electric vehicles today and charging stations and so on, but we had done that in 2017, exempted all of them. We reduced the duty on new tires from 30% to 15%. We increased the tax threshold from $660,000 to $720,000, or 1/3 of your gross income, whichever was higher. And that is still there today, the 1/3 of your gross income. It was introduced by us in 2017. We reduced the personal income tax rate. This is the income tax of individuals, from 30% to 28%. We reduced the corporate tax rate from 30% to 27.5% for manufacturing companies. We put in place an automatic issuance of temporary income tax and NIS compliance certificates for 3 months. This is to overcome those who wanted to come and bid for jobs, but they were having difficulty getting their income tax compliance and the NIS compliance. We said, okay, you're going to get a temporary one for 3 months, notwithstanding whatever problems you have, but you have to put yourself, right during those 3 months. We introduced what is called a trusted trader compliance certificate that will last for 3 years. In other words, then, if there's a history of your paying taxes and so on and so forth, then we will issue a 3-year compliance, so you don't have to have that devilish thing of going every minute and so on, right? Of course, remember, we reduced the VAT from 16% from 16% to 14%, and you will recall that it was the PPP that introduced VAT at 16%, right? At the time when they said it was going to be neutral, but in the first year alone, the VAT intake was considerably more than you had combined with the consumption tax and the other taxes that were removed as a result of the VAT. We reduced that VAT from 16% to 14%. And we are on record of saying that we were going to reduce that to 12% had we been put in place. And we increased the VAT threshold from 10 million to 50 million. In other words, then, if you earn 50 million in sales and so on, you are not required to report for the, to the VAT at GRE. And of course, VAT on electricity in excess of $10,000 was placed, and water in excess of $1,500 was placed. That was what we had in 2017. We also had the stamping of liquor and tobacco, right, to help with the smuggling. And also, importantly, we introduced VAT to be paid by all government agencies, right? Because this allowed us not only to garner more revenue, but it gave the true expenditure of items being consumed by the budget agencies, all right, and gave them opportunity for better budgeting. In 2018, we extended the yearly income tax allowance, regardless of whether you work part of the year or the full year. In other words, then, if you work 1 month in the year, or let's say 2 months, and you earned say $200,000, in the previous regime, you could only be allowed part of the 2/12 of the threshold for the purposes of computing your chargeable income. Now you are entitled to the entire years, so you will pay no tax. Right? So if the entire year's threshold was $770,000 and you earn $200,000 for the 2 months, then you pay no tax because you would have still have been entitled to the whole $770,000. Okay? Then we extended tax-free vacation allowance to private sector employees. As you well know, tax-free vacation allowance was only extended to public sector employees. And when I went into courts one time, people approached me and said, why they should be paying and so on. And I agreed. And I went, got cabinet's approval, and we put it in as a measure. So everybody, private or public, enjoys a tax-free vacation equivalent to their basic salary. Okay? That was put in by us in 2018. As a result of the GMSA's recommendation, we restricted pine wood and pine wood products to support the forestry industry. We removed the VAT on complete housing units, costing up to $6.5 million, and built by or on behalf of the Central Housing and Planning Agency. And of course, we introduced the amnesty on delinquent taxpayers. In 2019, of course, we increased the tax threshold to $780,000 or 1/3 of your gross income. We increased the old age pensions to $20,500. We removed the taxes on vehicles and handsets with accessories for use by persons with disability. We reduced the corporate income tax on manufacturing companies from 27.5%, which we had previously done in 2017, to 25%. We reduced the excise tax on shandy, indigenous wines, etc., from 100-something% to 65%. We exempted from VAT concrete blocks used in housing, and we gave the VAT credits for electricity and water for exporters and manufacturing companies. And of course, in 2020, we removed the VAT on water, electricity, and domestic travel, and a number of items in connection with the COVID story. So those are just a sample. Those are just a sample of what they don't want you to know. But take his advice and go to the annex of the budget and see for yourself. But people love to compare our 2015, 2020 with now what is happening here. But remember, the 2015 government was a government that came into power after 23 years of being out of power. And so a more favorable comparison should be made with a similar government. And that government will be the 1992-1997 government, because that government came into power after 28 years of being out of power. And like Jagdio, I am telling you, I am recommending to you to go to the budget speeches, to the annex of the budget speeches of 1993, 1994, and 1995, and you will see among the various taxes imposed the following that I will call out, and y'all have the last laugh. Have the last laugh. The 1993 budget, here are some of the measures that were put in place. This is a government that come in to power in 1992 after being out of power 28 years. Almost similar to the government that came in 2015 after being out of power for 23 years. The 1993 budget. Under corporate taxes and income taxes. 1. Additional corporate tax, in bracket, development levy. All commercial companies carrying on business in Guyana shall be charged an additional corporate tax of 10% on their chargeable profits, effectively increasing the corporation tax for these companies to 45%. So it was 35 when they came in 92. 1993 budget, it gone to 45%. Right? Note well, in 1992, commercial corporate tax rate was reduced from 55% to 35%. This is the last budget of the PNC government in 1992. And in that budget, the commercial corporate tax rate was reduced from 55% to 35%. And the manufacturing rate, like that we like to call it, the non-commercial corporate tax rate was reduced from 45% to 35%. So effectively, corporate tax rate, whether commercial or non-commercial, was reduced to 35%. In comes the Jaglon government, and they promptly put in a development levy that was attached to the corporate tax. So moving it from 35 to 45%. 2, hotel accommodation tax. A 10% room tax was introduced in 1993. A 10% tax was introduced in 1993. Registration of landlords, number 3. Every landlord was required to register with a central authority. Every landlord was required to register with a central authority. Now, I don't know where that went. I don't recall it ever being enforced because those backers and so on who backed the PPP and with whatever money and whatever would have been up in arms. But that was announced and perhaps never enforced. 4, persons leaving Guyana. The Commissioner of Inland Revenue will be empowered to issue a directive to the Commissioner of Police or Chief Immigration Officer or both to prevent a delinquent taxpayer from leaving Guyana without paying taxes or furnishing security to the satisfaction of the Commissioner for the payment of those taxes. This is 1993, you know, my friends. 1993. Say it out aloud. Get out your pen and paper. Get your cokes going. You may need to write this up, or you could look back at the program afterwards. Kadaki, Sherrod, all of y'all, I'm pleading with y'all after you listen to this program, cut out pieces of it and put it there. Let people know. Let people know. That's 4. Number 5, we still at 1993. 5, taxes, license, and other fees. Airport tax, $1,000, the old one, increased by 100% to $2,000. Professional fees, all fee, $1,500. These are the fees that you would have been in the up to when the PNC was there in 1992. Okay? Professional fees, $2,500, old fee. New fee, $10,000, a 300% increase. Banking license in the city. If you have a branch in the city, the old fee was $10,000. The new fee in 1993 was $500,000. Let me say that again. Banking license in the city, the fee is $10,000, but the new fee, $500,000. If it's out of the city, $5,000 was the old fee, and the new fee, $250,000. Betting shop license, old fee, $1.5 million. New fee, $2 million. Passport stamps. Y'all remember you used to put passports, you used to put stamps in your passport? A regular passport was $500. New, $1,000, 100% increase. A business passport, $1,000. Old fee. New fee, $2,000, 100% increase. Travel voucher tax, right? This is not the exit tax. This is the tax. This is the tax that you pay as a percent of the ticket. Travel voucher tax increased to 50%. That's half. If your ticket costs $1,000, half $500 on the ticket, that's $1,500 already without even the travel tax. The travel voucher tax, 50% increase. Vehicle licenses, 100% increase. Certificate of fitness, 100% increase. Trade licenses, 100% increase. Hucksters licenses, 100% increase. Miscellaneous regulations. This is what he told y'all to go and check and you'll see. And you will see miscellaneous regulations. But these were there in 1993. The same ones. The same ones. But you listen to me carefully. Miscellaneous regulations, I'm going to read it 1993. The following acts were amended to bring to a realistic level, the fees and penalties payable by operators. The following acts were amended, right? These are now the fees and penalties payable. This is identical to what took place in 27. This is what we call in the 200 taxes. It's the range of fees that were amended. Some of them as old as 1950 something that were amended. Yeah, donkey cart fee and all those kinds of things. They're there since 1950 something. You either get rid of the fee or you put it to a more manageable administrative level. So here are the ones that attracted the attention of the 1993 budget. The Weights and Measures Act, the Miscellaneous License Act, the Coconut Products Control Act, the Rice Factories Act, the Tax Act, the Consumption Tax Act, the Customs Act, the Spirits Act, this is the one with liquor and so on, the Beer Regulations Act, the Fisheries Act, the Hucksters License and Control Act, the Banking Act, and the Petroleum Act. Those were all amended in 1993, where fees licenses were increased. In 1994, running down here quickly, but I got to get it out. 1994 budget, corporation tax. Listen to this carefully. Corporation tax. 1. Tax holiday will be abolished. Existing tax holidays will be allowed to expire. 2. A minimum tax based on gross sales will be introduced. The tax will be levied at a rate of 2%, applied to entities except agriculture and tourism exceeding 1.2 million in annual sales. And the reason given for this was to ensure that businesses no longer were able to report losses continually while remaining in business. This particular tax caused a whole set of trouble in the Caldor budget back in the 1960s. But you see the reason? It was to ensure that businesses no longer were able to report losses continually while remaining in businesses. Didn't we put something similar to that? But we set it off. In other words, then, give me a 2%, and then when you submit your income tax or corporate tax annually, you will set off. So either you owe me a little portion or I owe you a little portion. That is what they're talking about taxes. The consumption tax was amended to include broad categories of domestic and imported goods, taxed at 0%, 10%, and 30%, and 2 special tax rates for petroleum 50% and tobacco and liquor 85% were introduced. 4. The number of statutory exemptions were drastically curtailed in order to compensate for the losses in revenue by spreading the tax burden evenly across importers. God bless Jagon, isn't that so? Because he was trying to broaden the tax base. Not these ones, transactional people who are in power here. They narrow the tax base. So their friends, family, and favorites can be exempted from this here. But Jagon, this is a Jagon budget 1994, as Gorali budget. Further, licenses for television, dishes, and transmission stations. License were to be charged as follows. For TV, $200. You're talking in 1994, $200, a lot of money. TV dish, a personal one, $75,000. TV dish, a commercial one, $300,000. And a transmitting station, $1 million. And finally, in the budget of speech of 1995, here are some of the taxes that were introduced. A withholding tax of 15% on interest paid on loans secured by bonds, right? Entertainment tax 25% to be extended to foreign artists. An environmental tax of $10 on every non-returnable container, bottles, cans, etc. of alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages entering the country. 4, extension of consumption tax. 10% consumption tax on overseas telephone calls. 10% consumption tax on bets. 5, an increase in consumption tax to 30% on fruits and vegetables. Those were some of the taxes. Yes, my friends, take Jack Deo's advice and not only go to Jordan's 5 budgets 2015 to 2019, but go to the budgets of 1993, 1994, 1995 that were put in there by the PPP, having been out of power for 28 years and having to have revenue to do the business of the government, right? Now, they like to tell you, they like to give the impression as if taxes and things are a bad thing. And in fact, that impression is what is going to ruin, Guyana, is what is going to ruin Guyana, because it seems as if we don't know what to do sensibly with the windfall that has come to us in the form of our petroleum revenues. But while we are scoffing at fees, increases in fees and so on, and the Jagdeos of this world trying to make it as if it's a bad thing, let me give you a little quote as I leave you. You know the big, beautiful bill that was signed into law on July the 4th by Trump? That is nearly 900 pages of a bill. And he talks about reducing taxes, of course, to the rich and taking away benefits from the poor. Well, that bill imposes a massive array of new taxes, of new fees, not taxes, of new fees and increases in fees. And here's a little one to tickle, as reported by a number of newspapers in Jamaica and in Trinidad. Here's one to tickle you. This new 900-page bill, which has been signed into law, 1, imposes a new visa integrity fee of US $250, in addition to the current US $185 fee. So you know now you're paying $185 for a US visa, and whether you get it or not, you still got to pay the $185. Now you are going to have to pay an extra $250. So that makes it $435 will now be for a non-immigrant visa. Yes. To be paid by visitors, students, and business travelers. Of course, the little reprieve is that you may get it back, the $250, if your visa is not approved. But the $185 will be standard. subject, of course, that 185 may very well go up. Then this new bill imposes a new $24 US fee for a Form I-94 application. You know, you used to sign up them I-94, but now that it's now on the computer, you could go and download. Now you got to apply for it. You got to pay $24 for it. This new bill imposes a new $100 US annual charge for asylum seekers. So every year that you don't get your asylum application approved, you got to pay $100 US to renew it. And note carefully, all new fees will be subject to annual adjustment for inflation. That is what is in the bill. All new fees will be subject to annual adjustment for inflation, something that we do not do. So when you have a donkey cart license that is 10 cents in 1958, it remained 10 cents in 2017. Now you may say, well, get rid of it, but not all license and fees are revenue raising. They do other purposes like control. Like you want to know how many donkey carts they have, how many horses they may have in this country, and so it may be a control mechanism. It may be an environmental mechanism. It may be something that you instead of putting a ban, you put in a heavy fee or a tax or something. They serve different purposes. And if in 1993 the then Jagan government went to all of that, not to remove, but to amend those taxes that they said didn't represent their current value or the thing to give the service. You now making one set of nice about 2017. Oh, they put 200 taxes, when in fact you're talking about the licenses and fees and so on might have gone up to reflect. And don't not even reflect, but might have gone up. Because unlike America, that will annually adjust even your rates and taxes. And they don't even wait for annually, because I was by my son in Canada at one time, and I saw some bills come in there for rates and taxes. I nearly hiccup. No, we don't do it. We don't have money. And years and years and years, we don't even adjust the fee annually for inflation. Look at what you're paying for municipal taxes. And look how they're strangling the municipal people. Look how they're strangling. That they got to go begging cap in hand. But he telling you about 200 taxes and fees, and they strangled. Ask which consumer was strangled in 2015, 2020. Ask if they weren't breathing. Where were the shortages? Where was the cost of living? Where were they? One set of money you got and wasting it. Global Super League and all these nonsense where our money is being wasted. When we ain't got, we complain. When we got, and the good Lord bless us, we waste it. But let me just quickly leave you with this thought. If you don't, when you get a windfall like petroleum revenues and so on, you must treat it just like, hello? Yes, you must treat it just like that, a windfall. It must not be used in a manner similar to how you collect taxes on a yearly or daily basis. It must be treated just like a windfall. It fall today and could go on tomorrow. So what this government has been doing is substituting tax revenues for the windfall revenues. That is why they almost emptied the natural resource fund so far. They have been substituting that. And what the natural resource fund revenues can fill, they have been on a borrowing binge, right? They have been on a borrowing binge. And just so you're hearing, and Kadaki on the air, stay off. Yes, and where they don't, where the natural resource fund can't fill what they have stripped from the tax revenue, they're gone and borrow. So I had a quick look at the borrowing. I can just leave it with you today, and I perhaps will deal with it next week also. Look, let me give you a 10-year history of the debt, the national debt in Guyana. In 2014, our national debt was $330 billion. 2015, $318 billion. 2016, $331 billion. 2017, $345 billion. 2018, $369 billion. 2019, $366 billion. 2020, $540 billion. 2021, $652 billion. 2022, $762 billion. 2023, $940 billion. And 2024, $1.3 trillion. That is how our debt has been climbing massively to finance trillion-dollar budgets while they strip away the tax base to give to their family, friends, and favorite. Friends, I hope it's a long session as usual, but maybe this is what's going to characterize us going into election because we got a lot to clarify, and I will do it to the extent that I can do it so that it doesn't blindside and sidetrack our people on the our MPs or no our not MPs or our folks as they go to the campaign trail. Tell it, go tell it on the mountain. Don't be afraid to tell it. And if they can be go-bells, we don't have to be go-bells. Let we be reverse go-bells. We tell the truth. We give the facts, we give the analysis, and we give the numbers. And I call upon Sherrod and Kidaki and all of you guys, cut out these things and put it out there in small snaps. Put it out there. Let people show, let people see these so-called born again who trying to impugn the integrity of the coalition government of 2015 to 2020. So long, the sun has come out. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Thank you, viewers. Of course, you have had a long session with Mr. Jordan. I'm sure you've learned your lessons. I'm sure you have lots of information there to digest. And like I said, share. Knowledge is power, and is nothing as dangerous as an ignorant voter. So let us ensure all of our voters are educated and they know what the real issues are. Okay? It's 9 minutes to the 10 o'clock hour. Obviously, I wouldn't be taking any calls, no voice notes. We don't do that on Thursday anyhow. But that's it. It's the 10th of July. 2 days from now, it's my birthday. It's Saturday actually, and I plan to give the children some ice cream and stuff, some goodies, as I usually do. Early in the year, early in the month, even I was saying, listen, I ain't able this year, but my love for children will not permit me to not give them any goodies on my special day on Saturday. So if you have any child in the area, hit me up and let's make a reservation for them so they can come down here to Club Twilight and get some soft serve and whatever other goodies we have to share with them. Good. Likewise, you yourself have a good time. It's Thursday night. Why not? Come, let's have a pre-birthday drink down at Club Twilight. I will play some music, chill out a little, see how things go, and then decide how late I want to stay out of bed. Good. But the earlier you come is the better because my bedtime is usually very early at nights. But in the meantime, have a good one. Stay focused. Continue to spread the word. The coalition will take care of you. The coalition has great plans to take care of you. And if you look at history, history will tell you that despite the difficulties, the challenges, some misbehavior and all of that, the PNC/APNU in government has always done and implemented policies to benefit everyone across this country. They might not have gotten it right at all times, but they have. Add the WPA to that. The WPA has always been working for improved lives and livelihood for the Guyanese citizens. And so put the two of us together as we are in the APNU WPA coalition. And I think you're going to have the best government you've had in this country for quite a while. Okay? Yeah, I'll have a good one. Just do what you have to do, and we will do what we have to do. Keep us on our toes. Keep us accountable. Okay, the other thing I need to remind you of when we look at the electoral landscape is that we need a whole lot of volunteers. So while we have that small number of persons who have willingly agreed to be scrutineers from overseas, those who are living overseas, there are few persons who said they are going to come to be scrutineers, and so they will have to be trained and so on. We need more than scrutineers. And we need more scrutineers too. So if like 3,000-4,000 of you can find yourself down here, all the merrier. So if you have the capacity, please come home to vote, number one. And number two, please come home to help us police these elections so that they be free, fair, and credible. Okay? Hit me up if you need assistance. Hit me up if you need guidance. But let's get you back to these shows to do your part. Have a good one.